You'll be right today. You're lucky.
Be professional.
Me, not possible. That's when you get it online. Hasn't come in. Oh, shit.
Lazy, nuts.
You do not touch it when I'm in. You know, all the Chinese when we go around there.
She does it all. I agree with the
Good morning.
yeah, it's something.
Earlier, Mark.
We can record it and post it.
Zoom is not the appropriate word, is it?
There's a lot of us in this room. No, it's not working for some reason.
And I would say it's
Well, actually, it says it's live, so
I've got it up on my phone.
it's saying live on YouTube, so anyway, it's getting recorded anyway, so.
Okay. Okay. Welcome, committee members and councillors. I declare the meeting open at 8:30. And just before we start this meeting, is being audio recorded. Those in attendance should refrain from making any defamatory statements. There will be no other recordings of this meeting without the prior authorisation of the committee. Okay, apologies. Moved, Councillor Fisher, second, Councillor Campbell, in favour, against, carried. Declaration of interest. Nil. Okay, straight on to the business items. Our P02.1 financial summary and investment report. In your hands, Mr. Dawson.
Okay, just run through quickly, page report. Well, let's just go through the summary of the actual operating results at the end of December. So more or less got a positive variance, a budget of 850,000 at the end of December, which improved from positive variance of 3.4 million the prior month. With the variation, there's been improvement in the capital works program. So obviously, increased our discouraging the capital works, the airport dollars coming through. The concern was around the increase in the size of the operating expenditure, which went up from 272 million to 1.12 million. So it's something that we need to closely monitor coming through, coming over the December period, and also with the January school holidays that may come back into alignment just with staff wages and so forth, people taking holidays and stuff. But we'll continue to monitor that. Also, highlighted in the November meeting, we've looked at this month of moving out a lot of the capital works programs that won't be achieved. Obviously, coming into a delivery program cycle, we need to move those out. They're not going to be realistically achieved. We're moving those out to the next year coming in. So we'll just quickly go through the overall categories coming through. So revenue, it's positive variance is about 205. Main reasons for that is in government place, its revenue up by about 200,000. However, its revenue is offset by expenditure on the other side. Domestic land sales is up by 84,000 until the end of December. However, we've had a substantial number of sales going through in the last couple of months with the Aberdeen lots down there. But we'll have a boat coming through into the mix to capture those in. Sale yard revenue is lower by 150k. It's effectively due to throughput in the yards. Obviously, the drought effects coming through has still reduced our number of throughput into the yards and reduce the
There's
revenue.
not that one, Wayne, but I see last week there was 700, which is about our getting up towards our lowest part of the budget, week before 12. So I think we'll start to see, and it may be starting to increase.
Break it every point's 1100. So if that trend continues, then we should be recovering actually quicker than
It's promising.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So we just keep monitoring that, do we? Have you,
Yes,
sorry, Mayor, you're the chair, aren't you? Yes. So we think that is going to recover.
I'm
So-
quite confident that there's numbers starting to come back in from 300 or 400 back, and people are starting to get their numbers up. It's going to take, we always said it's going to take 2 to 3 years to get over the drought.
Yeah.
But we've just got to keep poking along and trying to save where we can save.
So through the chair, obviously this year is going to be a struggle to meet the budget of what we actually did set. But we'll look at the full forecast in now after we've done 6 months to see actually where it's going to fall out. So it's a process of going through now, monitoring and just seeing where we're going to fall out, especially going into next year. So we put realistic numbers into our budget system. So it's something that I don't think will achieve what we anticipate in the budget overall for this year because of the lower numbers. But it's something that we've got to be monitoring and bring back to reality.
So through you, Mr. Chair, we think, did COVID have an impact on that as well, or not really?
Not really. It's mainly been the drought side of things. COVID probably had a small effect based on the number of farmers that came into the sale yards. So that may have had an effect from that angle. But the main issue is the drought effect.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I think you'll find,
Chair, look, we've had a halving of cattle numbers. Cattle, I think it's optimistic, say 2 to 3. I'm saying 5 years. And the point is that you just don't breed up numbers overnight. I mean, the breeding cycle, seasonal isn't really good, but I think that you just can't recover in that length of time and double your numbers and with the same and keep pace with our export market.
I think you'll find that when the special sales come on, which it will be shortly, the Angus sales, I think we'll find big numbers. That's additional to our. That's right.
Just a quick question, Mr. Wayne. My understanding was the long-term viability of the sale yards always took into consideration that there would be highs and lows, but over the long term, it was a viable operation.
Yeah, that's correct.
So it's all we've done is we've just entered at one of those low points. We recognise that, but we know that the long-term strategy still is a viable operation.
Yeah, construction started before the drought.
Yeah.
Just hit us at the wrong point.
Very good. So moving into the next one there, waste revenue is higher by 250,000 or 270,000. That's a pretty good result coming through. The state roads is up by a couple of 100,000. That's mainly a timing, just with some works that have brought forward. But there's in the actual pipeline for additional private works over there is quite limited. So something that we also have to look at. The water usage
Through the chair, that's become a pattern with it, has it not? That you don't really know much. It comes lumpy and late.
correct, yeah. So we don't really find out too much from them until they come to us in April and say, can we get this work done by the end of June? So it makes it very difficult from that point of view to engage. Water usage is obviously down at the moment by $200,000, which is mainly due to the seasonal side of things. Obviously, with a bit of rain around, it's reduced our revenue streams. Moving into the non-operating revenue and expenditure, a little bit lower in the quarry area there, 62,000. Operating expenditure, as highlighted earlier, is jumped up to about $1.2 million. Things in there effectively is government placed with its cost higher, so it's an offsetter against the revenue streams over the other side. Waste management, it's up by 177. Again, it's an offsetter against the waste revenue increase coming through.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, what is MGB in the column next to waste management?
That's mobile garbage bin.
Thank you.
That's the actual curbside pickup.
Local roads, it's higher than budget by 250,000. Obviously, we are continuing to monitor that coming through to make sure that keep it in our budget limits. RMS State Roads, obviously with our bit of a push towards the end of December, we've got our costs are a bit higher, which we'll be going through and recovering. And our water supply operational costs, they're a little bit higher than budget at the moment by about 120k, so just with operational. But we're going to have a look at those costs to see whether or not there's any capital renewals that have been put into the maintenance area, especially with mains maintenance and things like that. So something that we need to look at. So,
Through the chair, that's not operational through the functioning of the pipeline, or are those costs higher than?
no, they're pretty well on track. These ones are mainly the mains replacement, the mains maintenance in different towns, and also the pump station maintenance.
Yeah, a lot of it's other, through the chair, a lot of it's other contracted services that we've had to use. We've got issues with land, got to get involvement in that kind of stuff.
Moving into the capital works area, it's $1.8 million behind budget at the moment. Main areas for this is coming back to sporting grounds capital with a stronger country community fund program. Those programs are now starting to be closed out, so you'll see that the final cost of those will come through, and also the second round of the drought is starting to get into swing as well. So there will be cost spent in that area. Airport development, it was higher by about $500,000 at the end of December, and it's just mainly a timing of when the contractors can send us the invoice and so forth. So that's a very lumpy cost comes through in regards to that. Overdale Brook Bridge, it's ahead of schedule at the moment, so it's a couple $100,000 in front. Refill program, the program is pretty well complete. It's just waiting on the invoices coming from our contractors. So it's about $800,000 there. Heavy patch program, it's lower by 300k. That effectively, there's a lot of heavy patching that was done that we think may have gone into maintenance, so we're going to have a look at that. So that might help our maintenance operational side.
Mr. Chair, so I'm just going to draw your attention to page 4, and yet over here we've got page 3 to a local road, page 5, and page 258. Now, it's also the capital works program that we use in infrastructure in here as well. There's $300,000 there for that, but on the other hand, we just are not doing that. We're not doing a maintenance. There is money there. Why aren't we doing a maintenance? It is an operational thing, I accept that, but there is money there, and that's the point of
The next one down there is the Scone to Morondo pipeline, and also the reservoir works. It's a bit lower than budget at the moment, but that works is continuing. Obviously, that'll be finalised by the end of the year. And we've got a number of water and sewer small to medium projects, about $500,000 worth of those that are behind schedule at the moment. But we're looking at going out for a tender for the majority of those works from contractors. Overall, our budget position improved slightly from a balanced budget of about $10,000 on the bottom now. Changes there. The non-financial side of things, here we've had a bit of a decline in our KPIs, so the key performance indicators. So effectively from November to December, we've gone the off-track ones from 27 to 35. And it is noted that the COVID does have an effect. And the reason for that is obviously the numbers and the restrictions on those facilities. We've gone through and actually tried to identify the key performance indicators that are affected by COVID or may be affected by COVID, and we pulled those out, but it only reduces it down by 9 to 26 off track. So obviously we need to do a fair bit of work in that space to try and So obviously going through the senior management group, they receive the key performance indicators on a monthly basis from now on to make sure that they're followed up and dealt with accordingly. So just with the graph there, you can just see the summary where we've broken out effectively on track with a 71%, we've got 3% in an amber position, which is within that range of about 10% bracket of up, whether or not it's meeting it by 10%. The off track obviously is over that 10% bracket, and the code there is 7% code. Obviously, it's one of those ones that the senior management group will constantly chase up and achieve. Moving into just the more detailed version of all the regs together. So you've got all the red indicators there that you can read going down. Try to read them. Very a little bit blurry. We will go through those as we come through the service report side and highlight any of the red ones coming in. Moving into page 11, 11 through to page 14. More or less, it's just our overall summary, the fund summary, based on the general water sewer fund. And obviously, with the request rates, there's 11,500 on the bottom line there. And if you look at the function summaries, more or less indicated per service area coming through, and the request votes that are coming with the mix. And they can be discussed as we go through the service reports. Including the schedule that I've provided there is just all of the votes in one document. Obviously, there's a lot of votes that we've done for this month, and a lot of those, as I said before, was to back out a lot of the capital work programs that won't be achieved, but also to look at where we can forecast for government place and other business entities to end up. There's still a few that we need to look at, which obviously is the sale yards. So we'll go through and review those as the course of the next month. So there's a lot of those this month, but at our next finance meeting, we'll probably have a number of those again. So obviously, as time goes on, we need to get more and more clarity around where the actual capital work program will sit. And obviously, we've been successful with a bit of grant funding as well. So we're actually going to bring back in some projects as well, obviously with the local roads and community infrastructure grant funding we receive that has to be completed by the end of June. So bit of change around the place. Page 15, here we've just brought us the bank side of things. Obviously, you can see there on the grant, the actual graph coming down there, dropping away, mainly due to the cost that we've expended out at the airport. So we had money banked away, and now we're starting to spend it through the airport. So that's why the bank has gone back down. Page 16, we're looking more or less at the investment side of things. So that's our investments and the maturity dates of those investments coming through. As you can see by the interest rates, especially as it goes down later in maturity dates, the rates are falling. And on page 17 is the summary of our loan schedule. So effectively, we've got 34 million in investments and 34 million in loan borrowings outstanding at the end of December. Moving through then, just through to the net current asset positions. This was a forecast forward just to see where we think that the balance sheet from a net current asset position would fall out. So that's from pages 8 through to 21. And then we go into our restrictions, our commentary around the restrictions, and then into the more detailed version from pages 29 through to 35 of the movements that are happening in our restrictions.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. A question on page 23 and the unexpended grants under the environment section. I know it has been explained to me before, but would you explain it again? about the Aberdeen weighbridge and what's happening there. So if we had money for the Aberdeen weighbridge, why didn't we build it?
Effectively, we had to go through and do an assessment down there. We put in the Scone weighbridge, and there was always a thought pattern around putting a weighbridge at Aberdeen and one out at Merriwall. Merriwall become unfeasible to put about there. And Aberdeen, they've just got into the strategy now, and they're in the process of doing the weighbridge now.
Oh, so it's being built now?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. So we're looking at, there's different studies that have been done, and surveying that's been done. Hopefully it will be in place by the end of this financial year.
So why was it, what was the delay? Just because we had to look at where?
We had to look where it actually could sit at the
Right.
facility.
Yeah.
So we had to go through that process and just see the best position, and bring it into play from that angle.
So with the money that we had for that, what happened to that? That just sat somewhere or?
Yeah, it just sits into our bank account,
Yeah.
into the investments, and then we bring it back out to the
To
fund.
do it, okay, thank you, thank you.
So just with the restrictions, as you can see, there's a lot of movements in the restrictions. If you look right at the bottom of page 35, we have about $7.7 million change in the restrictions. That's mainly a lot of the capital works, whether we've received grant funding already for it, that we won't get to, and also capital works that we funded through the RAs initially, that we won't get to as well. So the service reports will pick up.
So through you, Mr. Chair, sorry, weighing up another couple of questions. On page 24 in contributions and Stone Garden Ramble Gardens, why has that taken 13 years? Or what will happen, what's going to happen there? What is that?
We received some funds from the organisation that folded.
Yeah.
And we've stuck it in an RA waiting for someone to tell us
Okay,
what they want to do with it.
like someone being somebody from,
So if that organisation re-established along those lines, but then also it may come down to council and saying, okay, well, it's been 13 years.
yeah,
Can we use that money towards something else?
Yeah.
Would it not make sense to actually contact the Howies and ask them, because it was proposed, but it was actually earmarked.
And it says that in the.
yeah. So is that possible then? Because it's been a long time. Would we
I don't see
contact
why they
her?
can't progress. I don't see the trees in this park, I don't see why they just can't go.
Exactly.
The reasoning behind it, there was a plan for this, a three-stage plan to do upgrades.
Yep.
The fountain was taken out, and there was all different things that were going to take place in the stages
Yep.
that didn't advance. So that's what sat there. To do with it.
Would that, Mr. Chair, would that still be dependent upon who owns the park? It comes up later on regarding the park, which.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we actually don't know that we've got to have a long-term lease on state. So rather, I think it's back to 1930 or something like that. We paid a peppercorn lease. And we started negotiations to purchase it, but they basically said, go away, come back at this time, because they're selling all the more valuable assets, and we're kind of at the back of the bus. But the previous mayor was very keen to progress that. And it's certainly still on the radar.
So through you, Mr. Chair, we still can do things though, can't we, through the park? So we could still
We still,
contact the,
correct, we
Sarah.
still have care and control.
Yeah.
Of that, so we can still do it.
Yeah. Cool.
It might be prudent to get that sort of-
I think we need to sort that.
Yeah.
I think it's in here somewhere.
it is in
Yeah,
the
it's in the
property.
property report.
Yeah.
That also makes it.
And there's just a couple of other, on page 20, just the dates. On page 27, where it talks about the next ordinary election is due to be held in September 2020,
Oh, that's.
2021. And then also with the, on page 26, the sale yard loan funds, it talks about the proceeds to be received in August 2019. So should that be changed?
Yeah, we will make that.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, councillors, just the recommendation back on page 1. Councillor Fisher, second, Councillor Campbell. Favour? Against? Carried. Over to page 36. P02.3. No, that's right. Operational report.
Yeah. Right here, so we'll go through the more detailed versions of the service report. So this is more or less a look at how each service area goes. So I'll give you the best myself. So any questions, please stop me because I'll just keep rambling until someone says something. Okay. Yeah, so asset management on page 39 to 40. Here we've got a small boat going in. More or less, we've got a couple of bit of extra contributions for the Spot Joe Rider program. So we put that into play, and we've increased the expenditure on that program as well. Overall, year to date, we're a little bit in front of budget at the moment, just with lower admin costs with salaries there. So something to look at that we might be able to use to save. Moving to the KPIs on 41, 4 green indicators there, so there's nothing to highlight there. Communications on page 42, no votes or surrenders. We're a little bit in front of budget at the moment, and it's money in regard to our admin costs again. So just some vacancies in that space. So we'll see whether or not there's any savings moving forward. KPI side of things on pages 43 to 44, 2 green indicators there, so there's nothing to highlight there. Corporate services, we've got no votes or surrenders at the moment. At the moment, we're well in front of budget. Mainly just got a corporate planning vacancy that's been there since July. So we're looking at, obviously, with our default process coming through, there'll be those additional costs coming in for that space. So it'll probably be chewed up a bit, but it could be some savings by the end of the financial year. Red indicator on page 46, just in regards to our council policies. So it's sitting at the moment at 31%. It is improving. So obviously, as you can see by the graph there, from November jump up to December. So that's massively increased. So we're getting closer to our satisfactory target coming through. And obviously, we're keen to keep those progressing along. Moving to customer service on page 47, no vote or surrender here. A little bit of overspent in this one in our salaries area, but nothing much to highlight there. KPI on page 48, a green indicator there, so nothing to highlight there. Depot operations, here we've got no votes or surrenders coming through. Really spot on budget overall. However, we're a little bit overspending our building maintenance area there, so we're just going to review those costs and just see what those are. Maybe improvements to the actual guards themselves. So we'll be going through that process. Apart from that, nothing else to highlight. Financial services on pages 51 to 52. Small vote coming in here. We just fixed up the Merriward admin meeting, just with the carpet and that bit of paint and so forth. It looked a bit drab and it smelled a little bit in there. So we've fixed it up and polished it up. So we've just brought that back out of the council building RA. So overall, year to date, we're a little bit overspending our budget at the moment, but the majority of that is that meeting room.
Just to check, I just ask that meeting room, is it Zoom compliant? At the present time, we're meeting at the RSL, and the RSL is a great place. But the point is that Zoom is not working terribly well there. I don't know why, but I'm wondering if some of those committee meetings were able to be moved back into that council room. If it has Zoom and people want to, for instance, David Gatwood, he just dropped in and dropped out, which was pretty bad, really. So,
Absolutely. We've started making that room available for hire out, and now that it's fixed up, hopefully we'll get a bit of custom through there. So, obviously, with everything at the moment, we have the technology working well. We can have better meetings there.
All right, thank you.
Moving to the KPIs on page 53. 2 green indicators there, so nothing to highlight. And looking at our on-cost review on page 54, nearly spot on coming through to the end of December. So highlight there. Fleet management on page 55 to 56, no votes or surrenders coming through. A little bit underspent at the moment, just mainly in our fuel area and also the paint costs. So obviously those are timing related coming through and also operational and capital works generated as well, obviously the fuel.
electricity. What's the solar panels from the car park? How are they going with bills overall?
Overall, we actually, our electricity bill itself stayed pretty stagnant, even though our costs on the tariffs went up.
Yep.
So our consumption was about the same. The actual cost on the actual tariff increased, but with the solar, actual cost on the bill stayed relatively the same coming through. So we've got a bit of the saving in there. It's not much though. It's only 3 cents a kilowatt or 4 cents a kilowatt that we're getting back on it, but it's definitely paying for itself.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, can we see a breakdown of that? Like, I think I've asked this before, I have a feeling Councillor Fisher has too, on what we actually make, what is actually happening with the solar panels that we have.
Yep.
And because we should be offset, I mean, our costs should be offset, shouldn't they? With the car park and the early learning centre, solar panels obviously do the early learning centre, but there must be a breakdown somewhere that we can look at.
Yeah, I know the manager of sustainability was looking at all the electricity costs and seeing what we were actually receiving back in regards to those.
That's what we want to run through the sustainability committee.
Except for the sustainability committee doesn't meet very often. This committee meets every month. It would be interesting on the monitor that we have in reception to actually have a breakdown, because a lot of people from the community have asked me about that, like to actually see what it was making and then what we're actually using, like are we actually meeting our electricity outputs as well?
We can bring that back.
That would be great. Thank you.
Apologies, can I, through the chair, just go back to page 54. The difference between the budget and actual on workers' comp, public holidays and sick leave, are they timing or what's?
Timing coming through.
Workers' comp is not something we should be concerned about.
Effectively, in our budget, we had it for the month after that, so it'll bring that back into alignment.
Thank you.
I think, if you look at the actual budget's 420, so whereas the December should be the year to date be half of that, so 210, so which is just the basic.
Yep.
So we've consumed 190 out of 420, so it's on track. It's just that 70 probably needs to be adjusted.
Okay, moving down through our KPIs on pages 57 through to 59. Three indicators there, so nothing to highlight there. General management on page 60, no racial surrenders coming through. A little bit of underspending in our salaries area and the general police hire at one time, so just a little bit underspent. General management on page, the KPIs on page 61, a green indicator there, so nothing to highlight there. Page 62, here we've got a small vote going in just to cover off our insurance into the mix, so that goes off to our bottom line, which will be covered by the savings in other areas throughout, just with our public liability and customer insurance costs were a little bit higher than we anticipated. KPIs on page 63, a green indicator there, so nothing to highlight there. Human resources on page 64, no racial surrenders here. We're a little bit in front of budget at the moment, just a little bit less in our work health and safety area there, and also our general expenditure. A bit of timing in regards to our corporate uniform costs, so obviously that will come back into alignment. KPIs on page 65, green indicator there, so nothing to highlight there. Information services on 66, here we've got a little vote that's going to the bottom line, just a bit of the increase revenue from our different records retrievals, so we'll just put that into the mix. Overall, we're a little bit overspent at the moment, just with, again, a bit of timing in regards to the internet and use of specialised external contractors with our network problems that we've been experiencing lately. Moving into page 67, here we've got a small vote on coming through just in regards to the key system. So obviously we've progressed the key system a little step forward again, another baby step.
and that's just come out of the RA. So overall, our costs at the moment are overspent just in the admin costs there. So we're looking at that salaries and training costs in there. So hopefully it will come back into line with that in the next 3 months. The resignation of staff.
Through you, Mr. Chair, when do we think the key system might be in place?
Well, it's a difficult one. How long is it going to spring, I suppose? We've gone through and had runs of it, and obviously we've got to wait for the contract to become available to come back and do bits and pieces. But we've done all the supporting grounds as far as I'm aware. We're looking at doing the water and sewer. It's all been done now. But the area that we need to really look at will be all our council buildings and actually getting that in place. So we need to probably sit down and do a scoping out of what buildings are left and what blocks are left to go, and then engage the contractor and come back and get it finished. Yeah. But it's been one of those things that has been laborious and time consuming and a long, long time. Moving into our KPIs on page 68, here we've got 2 green indicators, so nothing to highlight there.
Could I just ask you, Mr. Chair, when will the cemetery register review? When is that due? Thank you.
Moving into revenue services on page 69, no votes were spent here, nearly spot on budget, so nothing to highlight there. And KPI side of things on 70 through to 72, we've got 2 green indicators, and we've got one that's a red indicator, which is our money outstanding more than 90 days. 275,000 of that 430,000 relates to government agencies, and a lot of it's related to this stronger country community fund instalments. We have to lodge an actual invoice for it, and then they'll come back and ask us questions, and we have to supply information before they'll pay it. So it's a bit of a timing thing, but they've started to trickle through now, so hopefully that'll come back down to where they're at.
I think that really needs to be in the statistic of unarranged receivables. We can probably pull out this because it's just an invoice to it.
Yeah, I know.
What we're already getting, so it's kind of not underarranged. So maybe we can try that out a little bit. Readjust that. Something to think about.
Moving into stores and purchasing on page 73, no votes were surrendered here. A little bit underspent at the moment, just with our salaries area again. KPI side of things on page 74, here we've got a red indicator with our stock levels. They've increased, but it's a bit of a timing thing with gravel and fuel that comes into the mix, being one of our major store items. So obviously that Stormont will look at that and bring that back into alignment over the next couple of months.
Sorry, to you, Mr. Chair, what does that actually mean? So, I mean, I'm just looking at the target, and so yes, can you just explain that?
So,
I don't quite get it.
Yeah, so the actual target is the value of our stock that we've got on hand that the guys go to the depots and use for works that they're undertaking. So our target is to have $820,000 on hand at Scone, Merriward and Morondite. At the moment, it's sitting at 900,000. So we've got that's sort of like stock that we've bought in,
Right.
waiting to be used on jobs and so forth.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the key to that is to have enough for the operations, but not too much that you're holding and the holding cost of that stock. So one sort of determined that 820 is about what we need for operations.
Yeah.
Okay, moving into sustainability on page 75. No votes or surrenders here. A little bit over 20 in our salaries area at the moment. But that should even itself out. KPI, so I think we've got one red indicator and a green indicator. The red indicator is mainly about the response strategy and action plan for the climate change. So obviously the manager of sustainability will be looking at that and trying to progress that forward.
Just a question through you, Mr. Chair. With these KPIs that are off target at the time of the report, do we also get staff to nominate whether it will remain off target at the end of the reporting period, or whether they anticipate it will be back on target by that stage? Because it'd be good to know, okay, it's on target now, but staff believe it's a timing issue, there's been a problem, whatever it is. but we will still reach that target by the 30th of June. Do we capture that information from staff at this time?
Not this time, no.
Just wondering whether that would be good, because it gives us at least a forecast of what we think. And it could be KPIs that are currently on target, but staff believe whilst they're on target now, we may not meet the target, the 30th of June target, because of some impending or looming issue. So it'd be good to capture now. I know it's probably extra work, but as far as our forecasting for the end of year target, where we think we're going to land. So I'm wondering, we might talk.
Chair, we can put that in the comments.
Possibly, yeah. So we might have a talk about that separately, but I guess that's for the committee too, whether they feel that's a value add.
Through the chair, that might also be available to the forthcoming budget and the budget limitations. And then it's addressed.
What are you saying? You bring a red out and make a column or something beside it, and that'll be a highlight.
I'm thinking
red now and red next time.
Yeah, I think it's possibly an additional column to what we've currently got that shows our forecast expectation. And it could be, there's 4 combinations, we're on target and we expect to be on target. We're on target now, expect to be off target, but we'll be back on target and off target and remain off target. So there's sort of the 4, combination that you should have.
And so through you, Mr. Chair, so I've raised the notion for a dashboard that we could have for councillors, just so that I'm not on this committee, but it would be, I like to know where we're up to.
Yeah.
And I think your suggestion is a really good idea. And, but the comment about a dashboard is it's costly. But I just wonder if we still couldn't revisit that, because a lot of councils have them, and it means that you literally can have a look every day and see how we're tracking.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think I heard somewhere the other day some software is being looked at for that. Am I correct? Yes. Okay. So, but we can look at whether or not there's an interim measure. I don't know what the resourcing implications are to that. That may be a bit of a hurdle, so we need to.
So through you, Mr. So we are looking at that software, because I didn't realise that has not filtered through to me.
Yeah,
There's an access.
we're not happy with our budget. We're looking at this,
Yeah.
which I think has got better reporting.
It's got access for the councillors to be able to get into it to be able to, rather than the PDFs on the.
Oh, no, that's one not going.
Yeah, but there'll also be access to, my understanding, unless I'm wrong, what, similar to what Sue's talking about.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's in it. I think that the only thing that we're upgrading at the moment is our budget. Whether or not it gives that functionality in that new upgrade, that's something that we need to visit and have a look at. But overall, I think when we looked at those, the actual dashboards, they were quite costly to actually get them implemented onto our system.
They might be quite costly, but I think your councillors should be able to access material when they need to at any time.
I think it's an important management tool as well. We need to be able to see that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, it probably is an investment that's that is well worth spending money on, so that we're across everything every day. When I look at my emails, I can just go to the dashboard and see, oh, okay, this is where we're at. And then maybe ask immediate questions.
Yeah, I think that the time and the reality of having it online, thing like that, is, I don't think that works.
Can we, is it possible to look into this?
I'm happy to look. We'll take it offline.
Thank you.
We'll have a look at what can be done now
Yeah.
and what can be done in the future. I think there's going to be some resourcing implications to do an immediate solution, because it's going to be a lot of back-end manual work, I think, to make it look right. But if we can take what we've got and enhance it in some way, we'll look at how that can be done.
And through you, also, Chair, and also determine what information councils actually want to see. Yes, we can swap you with a million different statistics, and then it won't have any value. So just the high level.
Yes,
Sorry, just to chair, effectively, so the dashboard side of it, with KPIs and stuff like that, staff won't go and update it on a daily basis. It'll only be a monthly, no matter what you do.
Yeah.
So there'll always be that one flag.
And so through you, Mr. Mayor, so I recently did an audit risk and improvement committee training in December. And one of the things that the facilitator mentions is the dashboard. And I've been to a couple of these, and the dashboard is always mentioned as a very good tool for councillors, so that we know where we're up to, because we don't we don't, well, I don't always know exactly where we're up to, and things come as a surprise. So I think, you know, obviously other councils are using this tool, and I take your point that you've mentioned to me before about the cost. And we are a small rural council, so we don't have the funds that some of the city councils have. But I still think it's well worth really investigating and maybe chatting to our city counterparts. Thank you.
Not a problem. Moving into community services, admin education, no votes or surrenders, this is on page 77, and it's got on budget coming through. KPI side of things on 78 through to 79, 2 green indicators there, so that highlight there. Government place on pages 80 to 81. Here we've got a number of votes coming through, mainly to recognise additional revenues from the personal care subsidies through resident dependency. So we've got a bit more revenue coming through, and also the cost that's attached to it. So as you can see, as you flick over to page 81, we've got large costs that are happening in regards to our general expenses, which is our consultancy fees to bring the facility up to compliance level, but also our personal care side of things with staffing over there. We've had to put on a number of additional staff, and also we've struggled to get staff over there, so we've had to pay overtime coming through. We've had to contract out our registered nurse over there as well, which is another cost on the bottom line. So overall, with the actual additional dependencies of our residents, we've had to spend money to make money effectively.
Mr. Chair, Edmund, we got $200,000. We had to spend 185. Is that correct? Yeah. So really, we're still behind as far as the cost is concerned. Yes.
And a lot of those costs are in regards to compliance work. That as you can see, we would have spent probably 150,000 towards compliance. So it's quite costly. So once the compliance is in place, and then we get suitable staff in there to monitor it and manage the facility, which is what we've got at the moment with the vacancy, we should start seeing the turning of the corner. Moving into our KPI side of things on 82 to 83, both green indicators there, and there's one on page 84, which is a red indicator. And it's mainly just in regards to the number of rooms of the hostel. So I believe that has now been filled, that other room, so it'll be back up to an amber stage at least. Independent living units on pages 85 to 86. Here we've got just a small vote going through just to finish off our independent living unit disability access over there. Overall, we're a little bit overspent at the moment. Our revenues are a little bit down, and our building maintenance is a little bit up. So see that coming through. We're actually looking at the insurance company about whether we can recover some rental from those two independent living units at Bondi that were burnt out. So hopefully we might be able to get some business revenue back for that side of it.
Can I ask through the chair how the replacement buildings are going?
The building's demolished, the builder's been engaged. We're looking to do some initial work very soon, electricity supplies, like, and we'll be starting building pop and pop.
What's the estimated time to complete out?
I'm pretty sure it's June.
Okay, so we should have that done by the end of the financial year. KPI side of things on page 87, a green indicator there, so nothing to highlight there. Early Learning Centre on page 88 through to 89. Here we've just got a couple of offsetting votes coming through just in regards to our childcare and user fees. And also we've just brought in to pay some money we had in RA for a drought support program, which the staff over there just kicked off. So that's coming through. At the moment, we're a little bit behind budget coming through, and this is another operation which we'll look at a forecast to see where we're going to fall out at the end of the year. Obviously, with COVID and having additional staff there, it makes it really challenge as well. KPI side of things on page 90, a green indicator there, so nothing to highlight there. Family daycare on page 91. Here, just a small version of surrender coming through, obviously, few extra contributions and just offset against user fees. A little bit in front of budget here at the moment, which is quite good, but it's mainly due to a bit of timing with our childcare subsidies. Obviously, the childcare subsidies are paid out to the carers themselves, so that will come back into alignment once the payments are finalised. KPI side of things on page 92, obviously with COVID, our educators are limited at the moment, so we're below the target of the 50. So it has improved over the last couple of months, which is a good sign. But hopefully we'll have more coming through. Social protection on page 93 to 94. Here again, we've just got a little bit of extra money coming through from a grant funding for domestic and family violence. And obviously we've offset that straight into the expenditure for that program there.
So through you, Mr. Chair, what are we going to do with that? What will happen? So we applied for that. What were we going to do?
I'll take it on notice and I can get you what the program actually is.
Yeah.
That the actual community services are running for that fund.
So we just park the grant money until.
Yeah, there is a specific reason for the grant.
Yeah.
So obviously we'll find out the actual nature of that grant and let you know.
Okay, thank you.
That's fine. KPI side of things on pages 95 through to 97, 3 green indicators there, so there's nothing to highlight there.
Oh, can I, sorry, to you, Mr. Chair. Are we on, we're on 96, DIAP? I know I should know.
That's the disability
Inclusion action.
action.
Thank you.
Before and after school care, here we've got a few votes and streams going through. Obviously with the childcare subsidy, the family entitlements, again, we're just offsetting it over there. We've got a little bit of extra grant funding for COVID, which we've more or less offset against the additional requirement for staffing levels at the facility. So we've got that coming through. Overall, and last one on page 99, we've also just replaced the air conditioner there, obviously coming into summer. So replace that coming through. Overall, year to date, we're a little bit overspent at the moment. Again, it's one of those business entities that's affected by COVID and also with staffing levels coming through to maintain restrictions and so forth. So obviously, got another one that we'll do a full year review of. KPI side of things, here we've got 2 green indicators and an amber indicator. And the amber indicator is money in the vacation care area. That seems to be the one that's most affected by the COVID-19 restrictions at this point in time. So we're nearly on target, but it has an effect on it. Youth services on pages 103 and 104. Here we've just put a small vote back in the system for the CAS, the Country Arts Support Program. Just comes straight out of an RA from grant funding we had last year. So we're running that program now. Overall, we're nearly spot on budget. The eye side of things on 105 through to 106, 108. We've got a couple of green indicators there. A red indicator, obviously the COVID numbers are reduced. So we've got COVID has affected our attendance at the facility, but we are improving our numbers coming through. So we just have to put measures in place to try and get the kids back to the centres.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So did we do any Zoom meetings with it? This is the youth council, is it?
No, this is the youth centres themselves.
And did we do Zoom with them, or did we?
I'm unsure. We'll probably take that on notice and let you know what the schedule of that.
Okay, that would be good. Thank you.
The only other one there is just the amber side of things there. As you can say, youth participation in teamwork and leadership events. It's amber at the moment, but there's nothing running in December. Camping areas.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. Just with respect to our youth council, because I think that comes in under the same area. So did they continue running? I couldn't see them mentioned anywhere, but did they continue running through COVID? Did they have Zoom meetings?
Not 100% sure, so I'll take it on notice and I'll find out exactly whether or not they.
Yes,
what
thank you.
their schedules were.
And if possible, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, and this is off the charts here, but when they have their next meeting, could I please be invited to attend, if that's possible?
To the
youth
youth council?
Yes, yes, I'd like to attend their next meeting.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Definitely implement the coordinator.
Thank you.
Sorry, Director Pringle's on leave today, otherwise he'd be
Yeah.
able to answer all your questions.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're
No,
not
that's fine.
sure.
That's fine. Thank you.
I think they, sorry, through the chair, I think they did have some Zoom meetings because the young lady at the Australia Day Awards that was involved in the youth council actually mentioned the fact that she was still involved through COVID in some of the Zoom meetings with the council. So I think they had some,
Yes,
but I couldn't tell you how many.
that would be good. And it'd be nice to hear more of what they're up to, because we don't have any information on them. So I'd love to know how.
Usually it comes through the community services meeting and it hasn't met.
Okay, right here, moving into camping areas and caravan park. Here we've got a number of votes coming through. We've had increasing visitation at both areas in the camping and caravan park, which is quite good. Bit of extra maintenance at the caravan amenities, bringing them up to speed, and also we've had additional electricity costs, obviously, with the visitation increasing coming through. Overall, we've banked away 9,500 into an RA. At the moment, the caravan park expenses are well and truly overspent at this point, mainly due to some additional hours for the caravan attendant. So we need to review that and have a look and see whether that'll come back down to the levels of what hours. I thought
Nice spot to put it, but can't see a Bill Rose camping ground in there. When's that going to happen? Anyone can tell them? Caravan. The Bill Rose.
Oh, BRD.
I'm not getting anywhere with that. Absolutely nowhere going on 5 years. Just take that on notice, please.
Okay. Moving into the KPIs on pages 111 through to 112. Here we've got 2 green indicators, so nothing to highlight there.
Mr. Chair, can we just go back to that? There has been some discussion at Maribor that we really don't have RV camping area. There was some discussion as to the location, etc. I might have if you put that on, take it on notice and see where we're up to. Gatwood was looking into that.
Community Connect Services, no votes or surrenders here, and we always got a vote coming into the mix. That, nothing to highlight. The economic promotion on page 114 to 115. Here we've got a few votes coming through. We've got a couple of extra little grants just with the New South Wales business and regional community funding sources, and it's funding to try and promote local businesses into the Shire. Other side of the votes going down there, we've moved a bit of money from tourism into here, just with the cost for additional resources in the business development area, and also we've offset the 2 grant funded projects, the small business monthly project and also the Start House Ideation project, which is from last year, but the funding that we received was an award that was funded by the government, so we just offset that straight through.
Just a quick question. The We Live Here project, page 114. Very disappointing at Christmas time that we had 3,000 of those cards ordered, but they weren't here for Christmas. Experts said they come to the office here to get them and couldn't do it.
Yeah, we didn't order them early enough.
Yeah, so you want to make sure we highlight that for this Christmas. I myself buy a fair few of them and couldn't buy one. But we're advertising, we live here, spend labour. So just a big highlight for next year, this year.
So that was a late order rather than a
It wasn't
its own success.
It was ordered well before Christmas, but still, I don't think David realised the lead time that was required to get the form printed.
Yeah, definitely take that on notice for next year, and make sure it goes in a couple of months beforehand.
Well, it'd be more than that.
Very popular.
Yeah.
Street.
I think in mine went to get like 200 for the employees, couldn't get them. So, yeah, we need to highlight it.
Okay, moving into our KPIs on 116 to 117, two green indicators there, so highlight there. Private works on 118, no votes or surrenders coming through. Here we've been challenged a little bit with regards to the requests coming through for private works. They've been quite limited. Bit of an overflow of that, but we haven't been chasing too much private works at this point in time. Exactly. So we're not promoting it too much. KPI side of things, on page 119, near the right there, we're almost on target with the percentage return on it. Even though it's small. Real estate, we're moving to real estate on 120 through 122. Here you'll see some substantial votes coming into the mix, which is good news. It's more or less the land development side of things. So we've spent nearly all, we've actually sold all but one. Correct. The land development lots now. So it's just getting the price right. Correct. Yeah. So we've got this, the votes for the revenue coming in, and then the costs attached to those sales on the other side. So the both, and those go off into the RA there. The only the land development blocks that we've probably got for sale, other than the residentials, and the commercial ones at the airport out there. So we've got
There's another report that comes later on.
Nothing for sale there.
nothing for sale there.
They're all sold too.
They're all sold.
The ones that are retained, they're the ones that we're retaining to build the hangers on and they sell photos and stuff.
So obviously we'll do internal movement of funds in regards to that, and then they'll go against land development as well.
So I think one block that is quite steep and a difficult site. So
I've got that in the real estate for you.
I think you've got a picture.
It's mentioned. in
Yes,
the
it is.
papers.
It is a discussion point a bit later.
Right. Moving into just our year to date, we're a little bit in front of budget, obviously, with the additional revenue from the sales. A little bit offset by the commercial property revenue that's a little bit down, mainly due to the rental relief that we've provided to a number of our tenants due to COVID. KPI side of things on page 123 to 125. All green indicators there, so there's nothing to highlight there.
Chair, we'll just go back to page 121. Can we call on the scale alone and some of this explain what's into it?
So what?
32.176.
What page?
121.
That's the actual repayments to the
That's
loan.
no payments up there.
Yeah. So effectively, we've got repayments coming in to the non-operating area, which is the principal portion of the loan. And then also we'll have, at the bottom of page 120 is the interest component on 120.
Right.
So that's just purely the repayment of the loan.
So that's the interest on page 1.
Yeah, the non-operating house account was capital, that's been repayment, and the operating is the interest. 32,076 on page 124.
So no repayments for the.
I think that loan's around 2% of the loans.
3.14.
That's three indicators, so performance indicator, KPI on 124, Crown Land and Management Position. Is that really a KPI there? I was just wondering about that one.
Yeah, that's due June 30.
That's right.
So that review is due June 30. So therefore it's not due at this stage.
Right. So it's on target then. Is that what that means? So it's like, look, we've got a unit percentage.
We're on target as at the end of December because it's simply not due, but we are at risk of not getting it done.
So this
by
is
June 30.
through you, Mr. Chair, this is where Greg was sort of mentioning before, is we had a status now and a status towards the end of the year. it would have been a green and a red.
So it's quite clunky way here, isn't it? The way we do that.
Well, I think this is an example where you
Yeah.
say you're on track, you've got a full sense of
Yeah.
confidence, because I don't think we're going to meet this one.
No. Thank you.
Okay, moving into salary yards on page 126 to 127. Here we've got no votes or surrenders going through. Obviously, we'll be doing a full year review of this one here. As you can see, it's well and truly behind budget, based on throughput numbers. We've had some operational costs which are overspent at this point in time as well, so we need to really go through and review exactly what the resources and facility up there is. Moving into our KPI side of things on 128 through to 130, here you'll see where the numbers have really dropped away. The first indicator there is we're hoping to have an increase on last year's sale numbers by 5%. And at the moment, we're 67% behind where we were last year. So it's not a good look. Page 130, that's where you can see where the cattle numbers are. Instead of 7,500, we're at 11,000. So obviously that affects that overall operation. Going golf course on 131, here we have some surrenders. A little bit in front of budget at the moment, just with our golf course revenue, which is quite good. Obviously we'll monitor that as we go through. Tourism and promotion on 132 and 133. Here we've got surrender going through, mainly moved over into the business development area. So that's just mainly moving those funds across the other area that's gone past. But also the town Christmas lights. There was no town Christmas light required to be put out or replaced this year. So obviously there's something we need to look at next year and see what the
It's down anyway, Christmas still happens.
Mr. Chair, yeah, that was a point raised in variable tourism. Yes, if we could perhaps investigate, but we were of the understanding that those lights were available. Right. We just need to have them organised, ready to be charged to go out if that's possible.
Definitely. So did you have them actually put out at all?
No, they weren't put out. Our Christmas tree was magnificent. However, the other lights that were there were not put out at all. So we can organise it.
We had the lights, but no, they weren't put out.
That's my understanding, yes. That is correct.
Yeah.
It wasn't mentioned in the minutes they have that done. We assumed that the lights would be put out in conjunction with the Christmas tree. So it's a wording issue. We've got to address that.
So no wonder we didn't spend any on replacement because we don't know whether they were broken.
We're not worried about it.
I'll start early.
Okay, so we'll take that on.
Yeah, about October.
Yeah, well, that's actually
Christmas light presentation.
Moving into our KPI side of things on 134 to 136. Here we've got two great indicators in the green tab. Obviously in the tourism area, obviously affected by COVID, and our visitation numbers are well down. Coming through for the first two. Noxious weeds and plants and environment control. Great spot on so we're not nothing to highlight there. Waste management. Here we've got a small surrender and a boat going through.
Sorry, just back to your burning control. I think that might go up this month. Next month.
Well, this one goes actually. This is a levy that we pay through the local.
Oh, the
LLS.
LLS one.
So that's our annual subscription.
my understanding, Mr. Chair, my understanding is there was some discussion regarding the control of mice and rats with the locust levy being paid earlier, but I'm not sure what that's under. That is really waste council. The other thing too with the weeds, etc. This council pays county council 78,000.
Reserve authority.
Yeah, Weed Authority, and as that, I thought they were the ones that really were more responsible for the control of weeds. What relationship is it on the actual roads? I know it's on the farms and the properties, but when it comes to roads, I thought that they're doing that very well anyway. sprays weeds on the roads. And I brought it up to his attention.
So, council responsibility obviously on the roads.
Is it? Anyway, I know.
Okay,
Poisonous spray.
the other boat that we've got going into the system, if you look down the capital expenditure is 80,000, and that's more or less, we're looking at overall waste management strategy for council. So we're going through that process at the moment. So we gave some consultants in regards to giving a body of work to us so that we can be realistic about where we're going with our waste management and our facilities into the future.
So through you, Mr. Chair, Councillor, that strategy review will look at, say, Aberdeen and Weybridge, whether that's viable, required, all those sorts of things will be wrapped up in that review.
And the fact that the landfill at Stone, if it's finished
Yeah, just about.
at 2027 or 2028. Yeah. So that will all be considered.
Correct.
Moving to our KPIs on pages,
Just for the previous manager was saying she did a lot of work towards this. Correct. Is that being incorporated or starting fresh or what's?
now all those reports and all those documentation taken into account as well. So all that information has been provided, especially from a landfill remediation point of view. So
It kind of stalled a bit. Quite regularly.
There was a big gap between her departure and the new chapter.
First person changed their mind.
But we have somebody now.
yes,
Yes,
correct,
we do,
yes. And going forward, keeping a number of goals. Okay, moving into our KPIs, we've got 3 green and 1 red indicator. Red indicator is mainly about the total waste diverted from the landfill. At the moment, and what we anticipated with the section. So,
Just on page 141 through you, Mr. Chair, and the community education initiatives, what the target was 2 in the actual is 8, but it says non-conducted. What does that mean?
there hasn't been any conducted in the month of December.
Ah, I see. Yes.
But
Okay.
year to date, we would have had that.
Thank you.
Moving
We are
on.
looking at a waste education. So,
Yes, which is a good idea.
Moving into stormwater on pages 145 and 146. No votes or surrenders here. You'll be done with speaking in the maintenance area. So it's out to highlight there. KPI side of things, we've got 3 green indicators on pages 147 to 149. After that, nothing to highlight. The street cleaning, no votes or surrenders coming through. We're overspending this one at the moment. Predominantly, I think it's only in regards to time, so coming through. So we've obviously had a clean without a month earlier than we anticipated. With regards to our KPIs on 151, the green indicator there, so we're meeting the level of concern. The rates, grants and interest on page 152, no votes or surrenders coming through here. Something that we'll be looking at going forward with a review, just with our financial assistance grants, it was a little bit lower than we anticipated in the budget, so we're just going to have a look to see where that's going to fall out. But also our interest revenue is down again. So obviously for the past 2 years, there's been a decline in the amount of interest that we've been generating to the general fund.
yeah, and also last year, July to December, we weren't allowed to charge interest on overdue rates. State government directive. So that's a bit of an interest that we
Interest.
every council in New South Wales was not able to charge the recover.
So obviously we'll have a look at that as we go forward for our next year budget. General purpose revenues KPI, it's 153, green indicator there, so nothing to highlight. Council services on 154. Here we've got some votes and surrender going through. Just mainly moving some money from savings in admin costs and the elected members area, obviously with a couple of vacancies at the moment.
and moving it into the general expenses, which is more or less the improvement of the steam gentleman on my left-hand side. So,
We've had savings with the vacancies in council office too.
correct. That's what it is. So overall, it's pretty well tracking along okay.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just with respect to Hunter, the joint organisation and higher than expected annual contribution, why was that higher?
My understanding is last year was the first year of a new rating structure that they introduced, so they had a more or less a fixed rate, but then they switched to a rate that was dependent on the number of assessments and the population. So those assessments and population fed into a formula, so councils paid on the size of the organisation. The figures were redistributed. Our figure came out at about $31,000 for the membership fee for 100 JO. I couldn't tell you how we formed the budget up. I presume the budget was formed based on historical membership fees leading up to there. Having said that, it looks like the membership fees will continue to remain at a pretty static level going into the next year as well, $31,000.
And I'm just wondering, because I can't remember when I asked it, but I did ask for council to look at our actual membership and whether we should continue. So I had asked for that to come back at the end of February.
That's correct.
So how is that tracking along?
That's correct. So you asked, there was a notice of motion put up by yourself, the council resolved, I think at the November meeting, to have a report brought back to council by the end of February. I've drafted that report and you will receive that at the February council meeting.
Thank you.
Righto, moving into health services on 156, no basal surrenders there. Pretty well, the other thing highlighting here is just with the staff vacancy, our stat fees are down, and obviously our cost on doing the on-site sewer management is also down. So we've been having trouble filling that role at this point in time, and that is pretty well reflected in the KPI side of things as well, which is on pages 157 to 158. Two indicators.
So just through you, Mr. Chair, so with the on-site sewer management system, do we still bill ratepayers and we don't go and check them? Or that, because there's a separate bill, isn't there, for the on-site sewer management systems? And I'm just wondering if we're not checking them, how does that play out?
So overall, we charge a fee on our annual rating that goes through. And there's a 3-year cycle for actually going out and checking the actual on-site sewer management systems. So obviously we've got a list of what ones need to be checked over that frame. So it's all like an average over a 3-year frame. So
it will be done.
Yeah,
so
during-
ultimately we will
during-
catch it up.
Through you, Mr. Chair. During COVID, we didn't check them because obviously there's a health issue with that.
Yeah.
So inspection was suspended for a couple of months during the COVID period. I think all councils did that as well. So a little bit behind in terms of that.
So the time frame means that they will be caught up. You'll catch up.
They will all get inspected eventually.
Thank you.
I could just add to that, the drought had something to do with it, about the farmers, under the drought situation, there's a lot of pressure on
Distress stuff.
tanks, so.
Through the chair, you have trouble filling vacancies.
I don't believe it has been filled at this point in time. But I'll double check that up. What the position is. Low income housing on page 159. Here we've just done a little bit of work over at the Merriwall facility. Just need some emergency repairs and replacement stuff, so it's just coming out of the special projects RA. So highlight there, and it's a green indicator on the other. So emergency housing on 161. No cost or anything gone through in that area as yet. So highlight there. Public cemeteries on 162 to 163. Here we've just got some offsetting votes and surrenders coming through. Just moving some admin costs into the maintenance areas on that one there. Overall, we're a little bit behind budget at the moment. Mainly our site plots, conveyor and interment fees are down at this point in time. So COVID does have an effect on that, with folks coming in to actually organise their reservations and so forth.
Wayne, just on cemeteries, I've had 2 or 3 different people ask about the fencing around cemeteries, like out in the country areas. No doubt that's our responsibility. Livestock getting into the cemeteries because of the fences falling out.
Part of our maintenance, if it's actually a cemetery that's in council's
Yeah,
books. Obviously, the cemeteries that are on properties, we don't have access to those properties. Where they've got
the cemeteries we maintain, yeah, but certainly we're responsible along with the landholder, I imagine.
Correct.
Thank you.
And can I also, through you, Chair, with respect to going to the cemetery and turning right, there is no feeder lane there, is there? Right-hand feeder lane, heading north, yeah. So is there any way, because a few people have mentioned that, so is there any way we can ask the RMS, because that is RMS, isn't it?
Yeah, we have.
I'm sure that Jeff Bushville needs, I'm sure we have approached and they haven't showed a lot of interest in that intersection at all.
But I think it's something,
From a safety angle.
from a safety
Through
angle,
those safety improvements.
and it's, and for funerals, and, I mean, there's, you know, there's a bit of pressure on that area, and turning right can be problematic.
We don't want more customers in there.
No, so I think we need to really advocate to the RMS about thinking what we can do there.
Jeff Bush should do that. Report back to Jeff.
Okay, moving our KPIs on 164 to 165, 2 green indicators there, so the highlight there. 166, our public convenience. Here we've just backed out some grant funding. Unfortunately, we've been unsuccessful in getting funding for the professional road tour up there at Murrumbidgee, so we've backed out the project as well as the grant funding coming through. KPI side of things, a green indicator on 167, so that's the highlight there. 168 street lighting, no votes or surrenders coming through. A little bit under in our electricity cost at the moment with the street lighting, so that's quite good. Highlight KPI on 169, a green indicator there, so there's nothing to highlight there. Town planning, here we've got a vote and the surrenders going through. Just in regards to our stat fees, we're a little bit higher in that area at the moment, but it's been offset by some costs for late costs for the Aberdeen heritage study, plus also with the additional revenue, we've had additional costs in regards to planning consultants. So offset there. So
They're on one. Just through the chair, Wayne, the page 169, it's indicating that last year was 0. I'm sure we had some last year. As a customer request for broken lighting.
Yeah.
The green lights is flat line 0.
So we'll have a look at the
I'm pretty sure there was a few last week, so maybe we'll have a look at that before the next one.
Yep, that's fine. Not a problem. Moving into our KPIs on page 172 to 174. Here we've got 3 green indicators coming through in regards to our cleaning side of things. So there's nothing to highlight there. Building control on 175, no votes or surrenders coming through. We're well in front at the moment in regards to our budget. Our statutory fees are obviously up, section 68 contributions to building inspections and construction certificates. And that we're under budget at the moment in our contractor costs, which is more or less use of external contracts to determine some of our inspections and so forth. So it's a bit of a win on both sides. Moving into our KPIs on 176 to 177, we've got a red indicator and a green indicator. The red indicator is a couple of days higher with the time taken to process the construction. So hopefully we'll bring that back down below that 14 mark. Quarry operations on pages 178. No votes or surrenders coming through here. A little bit behind budget at the moment in this area. There's been problems with regards to obtaining material from our quarries. We've got a licensing issue at the moment with the Kewen, which we're trying to resolve at this point in time to gain the material out of that facility. Obviously, it's our main source of our gravel supplies. So, based on that, as you can see on the next page, we've got a red indicator for the material that we've been able to use sourced from our gravel quarries.
question here, Mr. Chair. The gravel source from Newland, has that been investigated?
I don't believe so. I mean, you and I spoke about that on Wednesday, as you know. I've got some comments from Jane as well. It's coming to yesterday, so I'll talk about it.
Okay. Thank you.
Moving into animal control, 180, no votes or surrender here. A little bit behind in revenue at the moment with our registrations. After that, highlight. And on our KPIs on 181 to 182, two green indicators there. So that's moving into emergency services, no votes or surrenders coming through here, and we're really spot on budget coming from the next highlight there. And the KPIs on 185, two green indicators. Fire services and fire protection on 186 to 187. Here we've just got a small surrender going off to the vehicle maintenance. Just with our RFS budget, it got reduced by $3,500. After that, nothing else to highlight. LG enforcement on 188, no votes or surrenders coming through here, and a little bit behind budget, mainly in regards to our swimming pool inspections. So we need to.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just on public order and safety and regulation enforcement, on page 188 and the actual regulation enforcement, I've had some complaints about parking on Kelly Street. And so do we actually have a range of who enforces the 1 hour parking on Kelly Street?
We do. I don't think they police it all the time though. We don't have a brown bomber per se.
It's just that there's
It's only when there's complaints.
there are some significant issues about a particular business parking cars on Kelly Street and Main Street to free up space on their particular space, but it actually impacts some of the other businesses who do need to have some sort of regular availability of parking, which normally there is availability. I mean, but there are issues here that maybe I should speak offline about it afterwards, but there's an issue here.
Yeah, definitely. And they need to make a complaint to put CRM in.
I think they have and nothing's happened.
We'll take that on notice.
Yes, maybe we do a flyer warning. Can you imagine we send the bombers down and start booking for one day?
Yeah.
Maybe we need to go through and put it out,
Yeah.
There's been issues and we're looking into it.
Mr. Chairman, one of the things big things that's coming out of the community consultation about the CBD is the variability of people's desires and wants for parking. People who want 4 hour parking, people who want 1 hour parking, people who want 15-minute parking. They've all got their own good reasons. But there's this great diversity of opinion.
So right now we have signs that say 1 hour, and that is being used. So I think Mr. Mayor, your idea of a flyer is a really good one.
Take that on notice, get that done. Okay, moving into
Preferable to brown things.
Oh, definitely.
yes.
Which is revenue raising.
Community centres and halls, no votes or surrenders here on page 191. Fully spot on budget. A little bit down to our revenue, obviously with the COVID restrictions, which is indicated in our KPI 192 with a revenue indicator there. Cultural services, no votes or surrenders here. Again, we're really spot on budget coming through. Australia Day costs sort of the timing thing, so that's sort of up next month. KPI 194, green indicator there, so there's nothing to highlight there.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, can I just mention that the Regional Arts Development Officer, I think you all know Mark Friedman, died. So I just wanted to make mention because he did a marvellous job looking after the arts interest for Arts Upper Hunter, and just so I'm not sure what the arrangements are, but I just thought, well, I don't know whether Upper Hunter Council has written to Sandra, who is the admin, yes, Sandra Reichel, whether we should, or to the board.
There is a report.
I'm sure I've sent an actual, they're all.
Thank you.
I think
I'm sure I sent it, yeah.
That's good, thank you. I
the
just,
next council report will also have just a short paragraph from that.
That's good, thank you, because he was a great chap and so sad that, you know, he,
I was reviewing reports and it's definitely mentioned in the header of the
Right.
report.
lovely, thank you.
Okay, moving into museums on 195, no votes suspended here, and that's got on budget, so we'll go right there. Other sport and rec, 196, no votes were surrendered, and that's got on budget as well. KPI side of things, here we've got one green indicator, one red indicator. Red indicator, I don't believe is correct. The information must have been put in for December, because the comments there indicated for November. So that'll be adjusted in the next numbers. Parks and gardens, on page 199 through to 200. Here we've got a couple of surrenders. We were unsuccessful in a couple of our shade sale grant opportunities. So effectively we backed out the grant funding and also the other side of the sale, shade sales coming through.
The cashless one was.
Councils will be included with the other grant funding opportunity. Yeah, definitely.
That's wrapped up with the amenities.
Yeah.
The playground and so forth.
Playground amenities.
The playground, Wayne, the opening of the Bill Rose Building Complex at Pilot Christmas was well received. It since sounds to be extremely well received. I think we made a very good choice to move Kangaroo Park at the end of there along with Lee, and there's been a lot of very, very positive comments.
Just on that, can I, a little nudge and reminder that we were going to put signage up off that bypass exit at Guernsey Street, that there was an mobility playground.
We ordered signage yesterday.
Yeah.
We ordered signage yesterday.
Through you, Mr. Chair, also with respect to signage, have we done the one where coming on Gundy Road, coming to the town, we've done a sign to the town centre? Have we done that one? I raised that some time ago. And I haven't come down along Gundy Road for a while, and no one's mentioned it, but that was one that where it says Musselbrook and Town with it, but basically points everyone left, and we definitely want people to turn right.
Yeah, there is an issue too of the direction to Merrywall, coming in. I like it. Coming off the highway, coming from Tamworth down. How do you, I'll have to give you a map, Councillor. So that there is not a clear direction to go to Merrywall, and I drove that road after one of the committee meetings, and same thing coming up from Aberdeen. How do you turn off? How do you get to Merrywall? I had a friend of ours come down from Tamworth, and he was confused to get the direction, and you also know that if you go into Kelly Street, pull up at the lights, there is no direction sign there to Merrywall until you make that right-hand turn. In the list of direction signs, there is nothing there to Merrywall. When you make that right turn, then it's in front of you that Merrywall there. When you go to the second roundabout, there is no direction sign to turn right. You can continue straight on.
Chairman, I've got photos here. There are signs on the bypass directing turn off St Albans Street to Merrywall, both directions.
But,
I'll show you the photo.
but coming down, when you go down, if you come into town, there is no direction there to say turn right until if you know you have to turn right at Liverpool Street, of course you see it. But going
on the bypass,
yeah.
Coming Tamworth or Musselbrook, there's Merrywall signs.
So where do you get off? Where do you get off?
That's which is put in there to direct people to the west of the
All right. What about coming down from Tamworth?
Don't send them that way yet.
the signs that I've shown.
All right, okay.
And the reason I've got them is
Because of my
Mr. Gatlin
the jet.
raised the issue with me, and I went out and took the photos. I provided them to David Gatlin and
Yeah, Jeff, I couldn't download them, so he sent me that fine. We can look at that. Okay, but the one in town, I do believe is essential, and the one on that second roundabout to turn right onto the Bunnan Road. We need to look at that.
Be surprised there's not one there too.
You follow us around when we go past one that
Apologies, Mr. Chair, I know it's not the correct use for this, but while we're talking about signage, on the top end of Susan Street by the depot, we've got no road markings and no big way sign. The road, the T-junction at the top.
No, don't be a bit.
So people are coming up Susan Street going round to the left, because that is Barton Street, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because in the old days, you know, that really wasn't connected up, but now Barton Street is a continuous road, and we really probably need some line marking and give way signs before people go wide and know how to stop. And, there's no signage.
Put that into the traffic room meeting.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is the right forum, but while we were talking about signage.
And sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, tree planting, which we haven't undertaken any activities there. When are we going to do it? When are we going to start tree planting?
Tree planting.
Anywhere. So on page 200.
Yeah, 200, we started some tree planting, but not in very well, that's the only one.
But have we actually started tree planting everywhere else? In like in Aberdeen, Morrow, Lionstone? We've got costs, so we have to put trees
St.
in there.
Andrews Park, I'm sure we've done something.
And do we do this on a regular basis? Only every year?
Yeah. It's the same time, actually.
Hmm.
Mr. Mayor, I also appreciate that. Go to the order.
It's only the ground that we've got Simon, but the tree plant.
Yeah, no more pine trees.
No more pine trees.
Don't look at him.
Pine trees. Well,
Let's say for this.
through the chair, while we're on Parks and Gardens, the Darracon contract expired in March. Seeing that they've been back there in the last 3 days, they still haven't completed the task. This is going to be a significant cost to us, and also logistically how we do it, which bits we actually do, which bits we leave to nature, etc., etc.
What's the story?
This is for the bypass.
Overall, yeah, with that. So
In
just
particular, the southern end. I know there are issues up the northern end too, but the southern end, there's, with all the complicated.
We're aware of that, and we're actively.
They're using equipment that I know we don't have, like the body.
we have got that.
Yeah.
So just to fill in on that, Councillor Fisher, I did meet with Greg and Bill and Sam, I believe. I made a suggestion, and it's up to the council, that, we get in contact with St. Hilliers, for instance, and they keep Muswellbrook all neat and tidy. Can they help us out on that? Because it's so important, the entrance list, all our towns, is the biggest thing. So I know where we're up to with that, but that's certainly been.
I started that process. So I think just to recognise the issue, yes, it is big. As you said, it's taken them 3 days. I've been watching them over the last few days. Yes, steep batters.
And there's some drains that, the swale rather than the stone, etc. There's an awful lot of weed that's been allowed to flourish with this sort of sporadic, we'll come and do it when you give us a call, and sort of, rather than scheduled regular, weed is taken off. So, as weed you can't control with slash it.
We're well aware of it. I think it's certainly at the staff level, we believe it's an important thing to be on our priority list because it is the entry of the town. I think the frequency that Darracon has done it is not the frequency that we want to achieve. We want to be doing it at a higher frequency than that, so there's an additional cost to what Darracon's already doing it at this stage. But we've taken up the Mayor's suggestion of looking at volunteer labour or, corrective services type support. Some Hilliers or other type entities can assist us there. They can. Bill's reached out to them and we've made that contact. So,
Remember, we hired the roadblock control slashes at one stage. They worked very well on country that wasn't. That was up. We had a couple of incidents with tractors rolling over on the roads. We did the others, and that worked extremely well. But there's a cost.
yeah.
Okay, so the only other thing to highlight in the Parks and Gardens, our costs are over budget, so we really have to be mindful of those costs going forward.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, that's not really cheap.
No.
3 months of
If you wanted it to a high quality standard, you know, it's a full-time job, just to scan entrances, gunny, the north, guns. It's not easy.
Moving into our KPIs on pages 201 to 202, we've got one red indicator here, and it's mainly in regards to the delivery of some of our funded projects at this point. So we'll catch that up rather quickly. Moving into public libraries on 203 to 204. No votes or surrenders coming through here, and we're a little bit underspent at the moment. Just maybe looking at a book vote at present coming through, so that we'll spend some of the money there. And also we haven't replaced the trainee over at the library as yet, but that's on the cards to replace that in the course of the next few months. Moving into our KPI side of things on pages, the plethora of the KPIs on page 205 through to 210.
Libraries, there seemed to be concern at Kpis that they weren't gaining books there that were from the library. So there seemed to be an issue up there. Probably just to kind of the general manager, you
Followed that up already, through the use of chair. So yesterday I did some further follow-up on that.
Yeah.
It appears in some instances, it wasn't a problem with our library, but we were getting those books from adjoining libraries at Muswell, Brook and Singleton possibly. So there's an arrangement between our various libraries. So the problem with the delay was getting some of the books from the other council libraries into our library system to then transfer up to Kpis. So I'll continue to chase it up and get to the bottom of it. But that's how it's been explained to me.
Yeah, okay, and we're all talking about this mobile library lessons. I think that was discontinued some time ago. It was, yes. Anyway, thank you.
Okay. Just going back through to the KPIs from 205 through to 210. Here we've got 3 green indicators and 3 red indicators. And the red indicators are mainly movement around the loan of from the library, and COVID does have an effect on those parts of the operation coming through, visiting the libraries themselves. Moving into sporting grounds on pages 211 through to 213. Here we've got some votes going through, and predominantly we received a bit of funds from the golf course construction contractors, just in a settlement of finalisation of that contract. So we've got that 24,000 going to the bottom line, and that helped fund the insurance increase that's coming through earlier. And the other part of it is a lower amount of money we received for the Allability Park, so it's just offset against the capital expenditure at this point in time.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. So just with the golf course construction and the Allability playground, what was the arrangement there?
The golf course itself, we settled with the contractors of the golf course. There was some warranty issues or something, wasn't there? Yeah, liquidated damages.
What were the liquidated damages for?
From delays.
Right. So we got a payment from them.
Yep. And the Allability Park, we've got $114,000 to $120,000. So effectively it reduces our capital expenditure on that project itself.
So they're not linked?
No, not linked.
Okay.
It's just, they both go through the grant funding side of things. Overall, today in regards to sporting grounds, facilities, we're well underspent at the moment by 180,000, distorted a little bit by the capital expenditure, which is 290,000. And again, we've got costs on 212, which seem to be diluting a little bit on us, which is the sporting ground and White Park operation. So we need to look at those and see where we're going to fall out by the end of the year. We'll review the White Park cost, because we don't have many events down there at this point in time. So,
COVID too.
yeah, so we'll have to have a look at those.
I've said this before, one of these issues, we need to, White Park needs things in page.
We'll put that in our big for next year.
Needs the manager and it needs works there than we did perform the project.
We'll make it like the golf course at Breaking
Yeah,
Bad.
that's what it.
Moving into aerodrome on page 220 through to 221. Here we've got no vessel surroundings going through. A little bit overspent at the moment, mainly capital expenses for that coming through. We've also had a little bit extra in our operational costs coming in and reduction in our user fees, which is caused by the closing of the airport for that period of time, the fire system and so forth. So,
It's my understanding that CASA were coming to have a look.
Okay.
Any feedback from that? Give an update on it.
Sure. So Casper came and they inspected the entire runway and the works. The runway has been deemed rideable and serviceable, so they have no issues with the runway. On an ongoing maintenance point, and with all bitumen seal airports, runways across anywhere in the world, we do need to obviously keep our sweeping of that runway up for the rocks, and that's going to be an ongoing, while it's settling down, that will be ongoing, and eventually that will decrease. But we have the tools and the equipment to be able to do that in-house. And
Little repairs, can you do that as well?
we can also do little repairs. A bitumen seal airport runway is the most practical and affordable for a regional airport, and it is what most regional airports are moving to. So, they're ordering all of them, or not all of them, but a lot of them are getting money through this regional airports grant fund, and they're all opting for the bitumen seals. Yeah. So the only one that I know of that decided to stay with asphalt is down at Wollongong. And so, but everybody else out this way has gone to bitumen. So no, they saw no issues with the rideability and the serviceability. It is completely safe and usable. So that was essentially the result. Yeah, there will be a full report come out in the coming weeks. Yeah. So I'm very impressed with our works. Really happy with where things are at. Our lighting system got a great tick of approval.
That's fully functioning now.
It gets commissioned next week. Yeah. Yeah, yes, it is, and it's operating under a note 10.
Operating, but not
Yes, so
officially.
correct. So we have a notice to airmen out, which says that it is available, not commissioned. So they need to operate under their own risk. But it is, it meets all the requirements. We've had it surveyed, the lights are straight and level. So there's no risk there.
Just back to just back to that runway. After it initially opened, remember the mayor and I spent a couple of days out there watching the airplanes taking off, and you were there, and we did identify two little areas that had minor defects that were having quite a large effect on the heavier aircraft. Is Daracon fixing those? What's happening there?
One of those, Daracon is fixing as a defect. That's a taxiway. Other ones we're looking at options, and asphalt is one of the options, but and there are other options about cutting out or pulling off and resealing. We've been out there setting alignment. They are quite small, but and the reflection of the hill height below or connection. You work 2 days.
but that'll be our cost, the second one.
The actual runway one, that tiny little.
That's not a defect.
That lifts the back tire. Is there any cost attached to that?
Have we calculated the cost? Well, we need to scope it up probably first, and we haven't done that because we're looking at asphalt options and various other things, getting
asphalt, which is, work along with that, but it sounds like there are funds there if we have to do it. Those who did, I went for a run and so did. Yeah. There's certainly in that big twinage, and there's certainly one area which is not, as far as I can understand, it's not where the drill collides were. It was always there. And it was never going to go away with the works and budget we had. So that's going to go away. We're going to source more funding, not from us, from powers that be to asphalt. As I said, it's certainly serviceable, but it's a little bit disappointing, but it's certainly serviceable.
Okay, moving into our KPIs, we've got 4 green indicators there on pages 222 to the 226. The red indicator there is just number of safety. Instance while the runway was closed. Bridges on pages 227 to 228, no votes or surrenders coming through here. Overall, there is overspend at the moment, but it's mainly due to the Aberdeen Bridge being in front of that schedule at this point in time. So, from that, looking at underspending our maintenance. So, obviously, we need to look at our maintenance for our bridges. Yeah, really do it.
Just to touch on that, bridge opening 27th. 27th. Bridge 27th. Yeah.
Moving into our KPIs on 229 to 230, both green indicators there, so right there. Footpaths and cycleways, no votes or surrenders coming through. Here we're a little bit in front of budget coming into the mix. So we've got a bit of money there to spend out at the cycleway. So obviously we'll have to schedule those works in to get that finalised, and we're looking at underspending our footpath maintenance at this point in time. KPI side of things, we've got 2 red indicators here. So one's about the capital works delivery, so the cycleway, so we do that. So we actually got some requests from in regards to unsafe conditions of our footpath surfaces. So obviously we need to get into our maintenance and get that underspent and fix up the issues. RMS State Road on 234, no votes or surrenders there. Here we're a little bit behind budget at this point in time, and it's made at the time we get invoicing attached to the cost that we expend to the end of December. So obviously we'll invoice that in January. KPI side of things, we've got 2 green indicators there on 235, 236, and nothing to highlight there. Regional roads, so here you'll start seeing some of the big chunky numbers that you're moving around. So as you can see, we've backed out of the mix some the works in regards to the rectification work of Willow Tree Road that we put into the budget. Obviously, with the design being completed at this point in time, we won't get construction started until after.
Mr. Chairman, the proposed temporary rectification there to allow that opening to a single lane road, which is proposed, we talked about, do we have sufficient funds in there to get that work done? Or that be in addition to what's here?
Through the chair, the first thing is to confirm that that's.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
And then we have to do the costing up on that and see the viability of it. They actually want the rectification work to be required to do it. So obviously we
Just to follow up through the chair, when do we expect to get an answer on the feasibility of that?
today.
Through the chair, we're expecting that report back. Following that report, we then have to meet basically and discuss. Because typically they won't commit anyway. Too early to.
Mr. Chair, may I be excused at the point? Thank you.
And then we've got a meeting out there next Tuesday at 5:30 at Marywalk, which is going to explain, not from us, from the powers that be to the residents. We'll be there, but they'll tell the residents why and how and when and what could happen.
So the other areas in here are mainly 62, which is Bun Road. So we've backed out a lot of the capital works in regards to that. One with the second half of that funding as yet. But we're looking at different avenues for that funding coming through. So we backed out that one. People definitely won't start before the end of June. And we backed out to like half of one of the stages as well. We'll get half it done, but not the second half. So just more or less looked at realistically where we're going to sit with these road construction jobs being so bulky and getting those fixed.
Questions? Two councils had to leave. What's the quorum?
More than two.
Two?
Two, or is it more?
Okay, that's fine. As long as we can continue. Thank you.
So overall, we put back out a lot of money in regards to that. So with regards to the overall position, we're looking at the budget, which is paying our capital works at this point in time. KPI side of things, we've got two red indicators and a green indicator. Here we've got one about the capital works program again, but also we've got one about the length of regional road resource at this point in time. So obviously they've been finalised and completed in January, so that should bring that back up to the target that's set. Moving into local roads on 242 to 244. Here again, we've backed out a number of our major road construction jobs, being out at Moonam Brook Road and the Hunter Road Narrow Court to Glenmore. So obviously we will not get those done. We're into actual design phase at this point in time. We've received $3.4 million, which will just go straight into an RO for Moonam Brook. But obviously we need to do the design work before we can actually engage contractors to go out there and complete that work. So it's back out moving forward into next year. Overall year to date, we're a little bit, we're underspent at this point in time. Again, capital works side of things, we're a little bit behind in that schedule at the moment by 800,000. And that, as highlighted in summary, we're underspending our rural roads unsealed maintenance at this point. So obviously, we need to look at that. Moving into KPIs on pages 245 through to 249. Here we've got two red indicators and three green indicators. The two red indicators, one about capital works program again. So it's an obvious theme that we've got running at the moment. So we need to address that. And also then the unsealed grade completed. So we're behind target with regards to the number of Ks that we've done in our unsealed grade. Transport and auxiliaries on 250 to 251. Here again, we've backed out a bulk of money in regards to the CPD revitalisation. So obviously that won't get too much traction before the end of June. Going through all the consultation phases at the moment, but the construction side has been delayed until next year. So we backed out about $2.7 million worth of that money at this point in time. Year to date, we're a little bit underspent at the moment, but that's pretty well due primarily to some grant funding we received for the shared space down there, for about 70 grand. But then also just a capital expenditure on 133 and on the revitalisation. But apart from that, that's the main items in there. KPI side of things, again, the red indicators about the delivery of the capital works program. Mayoral and Castless Water. Just a small surrender going for the new board investigation on page 255 back into RA. That work will be done in conjunction with a bigger body of work that we've got going at the moment with the integrated water management cycle management program. So that'll be caught up into that one then. Overall, we're nearly spot on budget coming through. Underspent in regards to the capital side of things. But also you'll see there on page 254, the user fees are lower than anticipated, mainly due to the seasonal conditions. Water on 256 to 258. Here we've got a surrenders coming through, 500,000 in grant funding.
and then it's more or less offset down below in the capital area, with the pipeline, with the easement purchases and so forth, that dragging their feet a little bit at the moment, so the legalities behind acquiring those easements, so it's going to be pushed into next year. Hopefully we'll finish this year, but reality is for next year. And our village retic side of things, we've done the design work, detailed design work, we've done the community consultation, and we're now going to work out the options going forward. So I'm going through that process. So anyhow, that one will take under one. Overall,
We want it, but we don't want to pay for it.
Overall, for the run of water, we're well underspent at this point in time, but it's mainly due to the Marunda Reservoir and the pipeline budget numbers. So apart from that, it's the highlight. Scone and Aberdeen water. Here again, you'll see some boats going through. We've received so the monies for the rural water connection, so we've invoiced the connection fees for that body of work coming off the pipeline, which is good. And as you work down through the mix, the private works had a couple of extra demands, which is offset by the expenditure on 260. Water other, we've engaged the University of Newcastle to undertake a renewable energy option study in regards to our water side of the business. So, so that body of work will be quite handy, working with power and so forth for a lot of our pumping stations. The other parts that we've dragged out of that grant funding has been mainly in regards to the capital works program. We've more or less looked at what we think that we'll achieve by the end of the year, and there's enough body of work that we won't be able to achieve, which is McAdam Street and the Aberdeen backfeed works. Apart from that, a lot of the other work is attached to the integrated water management process, which is the drought management plan, and also with regards to the detailed designs for Middlebrook and Dundee. That's attached with the other body of work that we're doing for the other small villages around the area for the water supply. Overall, we're nearly spot on budget coming through. Capital expenditure is underspent, and the offset against that is that water user fees is down.
Sorry, sorry. The Marunda pipeline, I know we've gone through that. So are there issues there? Did I pick up on that?
No. What it is, we acquire the easements for where the pipeline actually is, and you have to go through legalities to gain control over those easements, and that's the only delay. So they've all been in principle agreed upon, everything like that. So there's no issues with those at all. And
With the landowners?
yeah, with the landowners.
And is there native title along there too? Or?
So there was some native title issues there, and I've got that in that property report. Yeah. So yes, we still need to. We've done some compensation, but we still need to negotiate the final compensation with the commodity.
Very good. Moving into KPIs, 262 to 264. We've got one reading to go, which is more or less the capital works program. So we'll look at that. Moving into sewerage. Here on pages 265 to 266, Merriwell Sewerage. Here we're backing out a fair chunk of money in regards to the Castle Sewer scheme. So just continue with the detailed design, but the majority of the construction works is being backed out, which affects our grant funding side of things. So we back that out until next year because that's on a monthly progressive recovery. And also, it's unlikely that we will obtain a loan funding in this current financial year because construction won't happen before the end of this financial year. So that will be pushed back accordingly. Might just be pushed back accordingly.
Sorry, what through you, Mr. Chair, what's not going to work?
The customer service system.
So we're not going to proceed with it?
Well, we
we can't.
Budget.
2.6, that still costs nearly double that.
At the moment, I can't see it being affordable, but we're doing further design work to firm up the budget. If we don't get further funding, the community can't afford that spending. That's what it comes down to.
So we'll go back to what they had.
Well, we'll need to look at alternatives or how we can still address the environmental issues and the failing septic tanks and the risk to the water supply. There's still an issue there that needs to be addressed, but the sewer scheme in its current form without funding, not an option, I don't think.
Okay, so apart from the votes and surrenders going through there, overall we're pretty well spot on budget. Coming through, Malundai Sewage, no votes or surrenders in this one, and we're again really spot on budget. So right there. And Stone Aberdeen Sewage, so we've only got a very small vote going through here, just in regards to the STP access road, which is on 271. Couple of $1,000 going back to the vote, coming out of the RA. Overall, we're again really on budget there, about 100,000 to the better. KPI side of things, here we've got 2 red indicators and 2 green indicators. And the red indicators effectively the capital works program, and also just in regards to the capital works and depreciation, effectively. So that affects that. So overall, following that, we've more or less got the summary of all our capital expenditures coming through, and one continuous page coming through this there. So just to give a summary around the capital works side of things.
Moved Councillor Fisher, second myself. Okay. Gary.
Mr. Chair, I'm just aware that Joanne and Alan need to be at the airport by 1:30.
Alan can do this project one and I can stay.
Oh, okay, right.
Okay, so the next one is on page 290. We moved it 295, sorry. 290. Yeah. Be pretty quick. Okay. Okay, well, bring it. Any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
On page 294, the contract dispute resolution, was that with respect to the golf club?
Correct.
Thank you.
More questions? Okay. Move. Second. In favour? Against? Carried. Previous questions? Just, yeah, what's happening with the building next door? Same one? Oh, no, that's coming up.
It is in the property report.
I'll leave it to them. Yes. So that's just, for notation only. We go to 296.
Could we, sorry, Mr. Mayor, could we please get Alan to do the airport project update? The last agenda item.
319.
Yeah, which is now the actual replace with the supplement.
Okay, Al.
Oh, sorry, I scribbled all over that bit.
Is that the new one? No, it's not one.
Oh, it's not the same?
It's a new one.
Okay.
So there are,
Thank you.
Okay, Al.
thanks, Mr. Chairman. So this is a report based on a report we received from Public Works Advisory, which also went to our project control group yesterday, and it goes through all the different issues. In broad terms, breaks the project down into the airside and also the building. The airside is coming to an end in about a month's time, but it will all be finished. The current completion date is the 19th of March. It might be a bit of wet weather pushing that out a few days, something like that. Towards the end of March. And the building is just gearing up to get going. probably the single biggest issue we have at the moment is getting the building going and the fire suppression system. There's some detail in there about that. But we've exhausted all our avenues to try and look at alternatives. We've had builders, fire engineers look at it. We've taken to other similar museum type airports, visited Shell Harbour, Wollongong, looked at what they do, and also got contacts with their fire engineers, which they had some alternatives that look pretty good. That fire engineer has been talking to Public Works Advisory yourselves and the builder on a number of occasions, and we can't see any saving in terms of scope of work. Or we might be able to get away without sprinklers and drainage systems. That's not the case. So about half an hour ago, Public Works Advisory sent a report which detailed the fighting options. The builder sought 3 quotes from different contractors, subcontractors for fire systems based on performance-based spec. We asked them to look at a local supplier, and he's provided a 4 quote. Unfortunately, he's the most expensive of all 4, unfortunately. But the cheapest, and looks like it's a good company that Norton's worked with before. Total variation ex-GST is $1.09 million, so that's a large amount of money. So
It's kind of what we budgeted for.
it is what we budgeted for, but we just want to be transparent that that's the issue, and it's covered by the company app, and as mentioned, it's budgeted. But we need to get that signed off and back to them by the 22nd, so we don't delay.
Through Mr. Mayor, is that in this report, that costings?
No.
He's only got it from this morning.
Okay, so when did this one come through? When did we get this report that I didn't have?
Yesterday.
Came through this way, so like,
So excuse me, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. It isn't, there was just a typo or something in this supplementary.
It's quite different though. It's significant.
Yeah, disregard the one that's in the
So there's nothing in here is of any relevance anymore?
That one is replacing that one.
Right.
Just ignore the one.
So Well, just on page 6, 3.364 million, how's that going? That's going to be part of this fire system, but do we know how that's going on the overall project?
We still have a contingency, all the contingency spent, but that's the original budget. That's not revised. It's been revised a few times since.
Yep.
That's what council signed up to.
Yep.
But we still have about $600,000 after.
Even
So
after the cost.
even after, and it's also, that includes locking away some money for engine testing and things like that. So there's still probably some additional savings, and quite probably for the engine testing, there's still that 500,000, so there's quite a bit that we can reduce that by.
Which I think we're moving away from.
We don't have a solution at this point in time, but yes.
When's that consultant report to that?
There is some concerns with that consultancy report at the moment. They'll be able to provide us an indicative probably next week. But there's some issues with Mr. Owens.
And we have put in for a grant for the historical memorabilia as well. So if we get that, that'll give us some money.
Yes, there's two grants that I'm putting in.
The main thing we're saying is still quite a bit sitting there after all. Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Sorry,
This report, I'm sorry.
no, you go. Okay, all I was going to say is, so that we're comfortable. Mr. Mayor, are you comfortable that everything's tracking along all right?
Well, I was very keen to see what was left in that 3.3. And that 5 system was disappointing. To tell you the truth, we sat here for hours and hours and it was disappointing to find, but that's the rules. And I thought the powers we could have picked up on that, but anyway, that's what that 3.3 million was sitting there for, is these sort of things. So it's very important. I'm happy that we're coming in. And
As the fire system is very important for public safety, even though we don't, it's very important for public safety. If there is a fire and it's full of people,
I'd much rather done than go through fire walls, etc., etc. Remember, this was built for flying aeroplanes, not normal aeroplanes.
So we changed those, so they weren't going to have fuel in them, were they? When
No, always going to have.
they're always going to have fuel, so why didn't we pick this up before then?
Well, I think that's what I'm saying. The disappointing part is our people that did the fire, and they don't do it now. Yeah, they believed that they weren't going to have fuel, but we always made it. It wasn't a museum; it was an aviation attraction centre. That 95% of the planes will be flying. But I mean, that's what the 3.3 was all about. A couple of this hidden things.
and another option is to defuel them and then fuel them up every time.
You can't do that with
Just-
airplanes.
You can't do
The air
it
problem.
with old aircraft. It will just break the engines.
And I don't think you're allowed to put fuel out on an airplane back in and back in. Anyway, this is the only way we can go.
And just with, I know I've asked before about the contract that councils have, or the arrangement that council has with Mr. Kay. Have we got some arrangement?
Yeah.
Have we got, so how are the risks minimised for the community? And if everything falls over for him,
Yeah, well, it's probably, we'll talk offline about that.
okay, so we do have an arrangement, we've entered into a contract with him for this company.
General Manager and I are talking about that.
Yeah, sorry, through you. You asked that question of me, I think, on Wednesday or Tuesday.
Tuesday.
I think it was. I'll follow that up with staff. We will get you a copy, but they are confidential documents
Yes,
because
I
they're legal.
understand.
They're legal arrangements
Yeah.
between council and private individuals. So we will give that to the committee members,
Yeah.
but they're not for public
No, I totally
distribution. So we'll find, we're working through that now. We'll pull out a draft document that's suitable for your review and we'll pass that through to council.
Because that obviously is a risk for the community. You know, if things fall over.
No, that's right. No,
You know,
it
or
protects
planes don't
council's
arrive.
interests as well as
Yeah.
documents. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Al? No more further questions, Al?
Well, now we've used, Mr. Mayor, we've used up the contingency. We haven't
used it all.
Oh, we haven't used it.
What did I say? 650,000
50 plus the 500.
plus the 500.
So you're
So
still about,
1.1.
you're still around $1 million.
I don't think hot testing was never in the original
No.
scope. So,
Why is hot testing in it now?
well, because there's an appetite to assist the particular business that does hot testing.
So why are we funding that? I mean,
That's very much.
you know, we haven't funded Mr. Owens' hot testing.
It is
whatever.
Mr. Owens.
Oh, it's Mr. Owens.
Yeah, it is
Ah,
Mr.
Mr. Owens. So that's his firm and it's,
He'll be,
A
the only,
solution.
he'll be more or less the only one using, but we can't have his hot testing within his boundary.
existing,
It's got to go into a different area, which is then our responsibility.
right.
I made it very clear with him, we will work to make this work.
And will we, and so will there be there will obviously be engine testing in the
Well,
border.
we could have other businesses, similar businesses coming into the precinct. who
Yeah.
Also require hot testing. So we need to future-proof it as well as service the people that are there.
Yeah.
Because it's all part of the
I
the
understand that
business.
other businesses as well. It's not just
They're showing interest.
possible, it's very, very likely. It's going to become a hub for restoration.
Correct. So we'll need a solution.
I think we need to make
It is
that.
not just Mr. O, we're not just substituting. I know he's the customer at the moment, but there are very likely other customers waiting in the wings who would use such a facility as well.
Okay, thank you. And with the money from the air side of things, that there was a saving there. Where did that money go? The saving
Off the line.
through
On,
off the loan.
well, the airside original budget came in significantly more than budget, so the savings were to bring it back within budget plus contingency.
So is that all here, or is that where is the air side? Is that what we spent already? Is that an infrastructure?
The actuals are in the infrastructure now. Actual expenditure.
The actuals are in the, what was spent to date are in
That'd be an
capital
insurance.
expenditure you've got in here. and the budget is the original budget,
This is the original budget?
which is when we went to tender.
That's on page 6.
So this, the budget now is different.
No,
This is
Bottom line, total amount
exactly,
is exactly
it's never, the bottom line's never changed, but things, obviously, as we've done it, some things have gone up, some things have gone down.
so the document I'm looking at on page 6 is, that's completely updated. Is it? Is this what I'm?
That's the original. That's the original. The total budget hasn't moved. But it's like with everything. There's components within a project that do move. But as long as it's met within the total budget, then we are still spending what council has approved us to
The
spend.
scope of work has moved because we had to, instead of borrowing 7 point something, we were going to have to borrow 13.
Yeah.
So we said we weren't going over $7 million in borrowing. So that's where we had to go through, and that's why we're in the situation we have with what is called runway instead of a hot mix of a $2.8 or $3 million saving. That's why we had to rescope our aviation scanner back to bring back one budget.
The original quotes came back in,
Yeah.
both their side and the settlement building,
Millions.
millions over two.
Yeah, I do.
The council was offered the opportunity from government to, so we'll give you that, just get on with the job. I think council quite right, and said, no, we want to put this in the budget, this is what we're doing. And we'll cover health according to.
We'll start, but we'll work very, very hard to cover costs to get this for the budget. I'm pretty confident that we'll within the contingency.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, the year-to-date spend is also at the top of page 7. Just for this one.
That's January's per month.
Okay, any more questions, Val, before we stop? Okay, the recommendation is council receive the report and that information.
Mr. Chairman, in terms of variation, you okay to sign that off now from the council point of view, or go to council?
This can.
Right, that's
Coming on
20.
yeah.
Merrill minute, or can we give it?
Oh, it's just part of
No, we'll put it part of the
Okay, no.
But it's additional, so you've got to, we need to approve the additional.
We'll have it offline. If we can do it, if it's not a breach, we can look at it.
still coming in under the
Yeah,
budget,
we're not
not additional,
increasing.
so.
Yeah.
You know. Okay, so thanks, Al, for that. I'll let you move on.
Thanks, Alan.
Okay, meeting, we'll go back to page 296. Update on property project. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So with the land register, I'm reviewing properties at a time, and from next month I'll put up a report on each property as they are reviewed, and a position on its current use and its future use, and identifying any that we can maybe have to sell. So we'll discuss all of those individually. Policies for leasing and the rental subsidy. So we have, I've reviewed the rental subsidy one, and updated the leasing one, and a full report, a report will come to the next committee meeting to discuss the strategy for rental subsidies and the calculations. We did put up quite a detailed report on that in July last year, and I've had a chance now to revise that, and we'll bring that back for consideration next month. If that's acceptable, we'll then go the following month to accept the full leasing policy and the full subsidy policy. Plans of management. So we have submitted our classifications and categorisations in August last year. there is still no indication from the department of when they'll provide us a response. That we, like most councils, and have put this in quite late, and so they're inundated with work to be able to get these classifications reviewed and through to the minister for approval. So by the end of June this year, all councils, including us, obviously, were to have all the classifications done and the plans of management approved by the minister. We are not going to make that date, even if we got the approvals back today. There is just not enough time to go through the process to get all of our plans of management drafted, native title assessments done, negotiations with the Aboriginal Lands Councils, plans of management out on exhibition for 42 days, and then they'll also have to have a public hearing meeting. So there's quite a lot of work still left to be done before we can send those off to the minister. Saying that, New South Wales government has actually acknowledged that they're, due to COVID and bushfires and resourcing, most councils are in the same boat, and it's being reviewed at Parliament level to change the legislation to extend the completion date. The indication I'm getting is that it's only going to be extended for 12 months. It's not going to be a long extension, but that will, if it's passed, will give us till June next year. So we can't keep the pressure off. We'll just need to keep moving through this project as quickly as possible.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, can I just ask, so we've submitted an initial classification, but we haven't done a plan of management yet.
No, we can't do the plans of
Because of
management.
native title? Or?
Well, there's a number of steps. We can't develop the plans of management until the minister adopts our classifications.
Right.
So that's the first step. So he's got to, the minister has to agree to our position on classifications.
And that's been on his desk for quite some time, isn't it?
Since August last year.
Yeah.
So it seems
it's not,
unfair.
it's not us being.
No,
Yeah.
but
We're
if
being
they're
delayed by other
only going to delay, I mean, if they're only going to give an extension till next year, it seems a bit unfair if we haven't had a response to submitting the initial classification.
So we'll just need to work through whatever extension New South Wales Parliament did. As I said, it's not just this council.
No.
It's so 63 councils out of
65.
65, yeah. So very low percentage of councils have actually achieved the date.
Yep.
So and look, I would suggest even the Crown Lands Department they may even push for a longer extension than that, because they're actually the bottleneck right at the moment, because we're all going in at the same time. So as I said, it's an indication of a 12-month extension. I don't know if that's fact or fiction, but that's what I'm getting out of the Crown Lands Department. They would need to be able to resource up to be able to deal with the workload as well. So once they've reviewed the classifications and got that through the minister's desk, it also then needs to go, once we get the plans of management ready, they need to go back to the minister and be approved in that time frame too. So there's going to be a lot of work in their area.
And the native title assessments, which are listed here as being in progress,
Yes.
Who's conducting those?
So I am council's appointed native title manager. I have Dana Blackover actually working on the process of doing all the investigations and preparing the reports.
So who was that? That was
Mary War Lady, Dana Blackover.
She's been seconded for a period from the Customs Service. Right?
Yeah. So she's doing all the legwork. Where we're not comfortable with what we're reviewing, we seek legal advice through local government legal, and then it's my responsibility to sign those off. So
and have you had advice from local government legal on some of them?
Yes, we have. There's some really complex natured ones there, and what we need to remember is native title doesn't necessarily just sit on Crown land. Freehold land can also be affected by native title if there's elements in the schedules that say that there's still an interest in Crown still has an interest. So they're the ones that we have to, for freehold purposes, we have to actually do quite a lot of investigation to try and understand what that interest may be and to determine whether, in our opinion, native title has been extinguished or not. So it is a really timely exercise.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
That needs to be done in a very fair way.
yes.
Yeah, and just with what we endorsed last year in July, were we actually in a position to do that last year with respect to Crown land?
So what council agreed to was the proposal that the proposed classifications. So that was to say, well, this is what my recommendation to you is on the classifications of the Crown land. It was essentially getting your agreement that that's where the council agreement that that's what they wanted the land to be classified. We did in that conversation, in those couple of meetings, we actually changed some of the recommendations that I put forward. So what that was to ensure council was comfortable with what I was presenting to the minister. The minister is the only one that actually can endorse it. So I think, yes, council have the ability to agree to the recommendation, the proposal that was being put forward, but obviously until we get that letter back from the minister, we don't know.
And we don't know when we're going to get that.
We don't know when we're going to get it.
Thank you.
So there's lots of work there, and I'd suggest that this work is the Crown land and native title work is going to continue on for at least another 12 months, if not a bit longer. I always said it was a two-year project once we got started, and we're probably about 6 months into it. So about another 18 months would be about right. Okay. Anything else on any of those native title and Crown land components?
Just with respect, it's a compulsory acquisition where run by pipeline compensation. If you mean, like, can I ask a question on that?
Yeah,
I haven't got to that yet. No,
Yeah.
I'll wait then.
Just on those first
Yeah,
couple of ones.
No,
No other questions.
So
on those?
essentially, we're in a big vortex waiting for the minister, and there's
Yeah.
not much we can do.
Well, there is a lot that, so where we're focusing our time at the moment is on the native
Yeah.
title, and so there's two components of that. There's the Aboriginal land claims,
Yeah.
and then there's the native
Native
title
title,
claims
yeah.
as well. So we're doing those assessments, so then they can all be lined up, ready to, once we can develop the plans of management, we know where we're positioning ourselves with native title.
How are they doing? How's that going? I mean, you're obviously talking to native title holders, and
We're about to start some discussions with the native title holders. So with Upper Hunter Shire Council land, there is a native title claim over the entire land, and then there's Aboriginal claim on quite a bit of the land. So we need to be talking to all of those parties, and that could also delay our resolution, our final plans of management. If we, so the negotiations for Aboriginal land claims need to be resolved prior to submitting the plans of management. The native title claim ones can be resolved after the plans of management have been submitted. So the important ones are understanding where there is Aboriginal land claims. There's another roadblock because we don't actually, a native title claim, you can get onto a national database and you can see what's there. You can't do that with the Aboriginal land claims. You've actually got to write to the registry office and wait to them to respond. So once again, we put in a big long list in October last year and we haven't had any response. So we won't be able to even start those discussions until we get a response back from them to actually understand what properties we are talking about. So I've spoken to them as well. They've got one person in that division looking after that work. Once again, every council has put in their requests for information, so that whole person is hunting that.
Okay, we better move on.
Okay. So that's that section. Merrill Railway Station and land lease. We wrote to Michael Johnson MP to request assistance in trying to resolve some land tenure issues and what we're going to do about the barge wall there. We've had an initial response that he has spoken to the Transport Minister of Transport, but will come back to us when there's a decision made. So I'm not sure. We probably need to
chase that up. I thought we were actually going to use
We were
bridge
going to
decking,
use-
etc., to fix the
I
boat.
spoke to David the other day, we were going to potentially use some unused sleepers within the boat just to repair them all, just so we can exit the lease without any further.
Right. If that's the case, we'll need to actually go back to John Hall. We can't just do that work because that is the Heritage Commission, Heritage order on that building and that platform. So it needs to be done as per their requirements.
Can we just move on to that one, because Mr. Murray or Baker? Baker.
So who is managing? I wasn't
David,
aware of that.
David,
Okay. So with the compensation for the Marundo pipeline, there was initial $10,000 paid as per the requirements when we were doing the works. We still need to go through the settlement under the through the Compensation Act. The Compulsory Acquisition Act. The Gomeroi aren't talking to people at the moment.
No.
So it's
Yeah.
getting very difficult to be able to resolve that. So that's just going to have to be a continual tap away and see what we can do. Liverpool Fire Shark Plains, still working through trying to finalise assets that should have been transferred back in the amalgamation. So hopefully in the next re-amalgamation, yeah. So hopefully that will be resolved in the next couple of months.
that's just a transfer of title essentially.
It is, yes, but there's
Yeah.
difficulties with it.
I think we're over that.
Property strategy is in draft, and I'd like to try and get that to the next meeting for review with the committee. Aberdeen Scout Hall is a report's been drafted, and that's with the Director of Corporate Services at the moment. We're just a bit of a review on that. Hopefully that will come next month. 145 Liverpool Street. So there's been lots of discussion and things on that. I was in the process of preparing an option study for that. Upper Hunter Homelessness have reviewed that building again. That in 2017 they said it wasn't suitable. We started working on Sermon Street. There's been an inspection of both recently, and they've decided Sermon Street's not suitable, but Liverpool Street is.
They've actually had the people going and do the cost assessment, and it's way to get that suitable. It's a lot cheaper. I can't remember the figures, but it was quite a big difference.
How's that possible?
I don't
I thought
know.
that was condemned. I thought we had a resolution.
Well, we do. So if we decide to do that, we'll have to rescind that resolution.
I just can't see how. I thought we had a very thorough investigation, but it just wasn't. You know?
Well, I was told. So.
That building too?
Yeah.
I was told that when I started, it was about 146,000. But that was with an extension or
That was
something.
an extension of the bank, it's not the house is still serviceable.
Yeah.
It's not.
But if that's what they see, then we
50
are right.
thousand,
Well,
they were going to put
They've done their assessment, so they're the experts.
They can be used, that's great.
Why can't we use both? The sermon's next door to,
Oh, they don't want to take on two.
righto, yeah, but that's still our property.
It's a joint venture with them.
We're
We're still the property owner. They're the service provider.
of next door. And of,
We own it.
Yeah.
They're the service provider, so it's
Yeah.
a joint arrangement.
I thought the Sermon Street one was actually occupied and we were getting an income.
No.
We asked them to leave, which was a staff member. And now it's been dormant for so long.
So we need the whole thing sorted out. So we need to,
I think we need
if we
to
go-
go to inspection of both.
yeah,
properties.
if we go, they go in there, then we can sell that one or develop it or whatever the council wants
Things must change.
Why can't we use it for social housing? I mean, I've been in the one next door to the surgery because we had a look at that for just, in the early days of COVID. But it's functioning.
We probably need to go back to the community strategic plan and have a look at the listings.
The kitchen is how it's the kitchen.
Kitchen, bathroom, yeah, Service Street. Not across the whole roofing. At the back is all now deteriorated.
They've come back and said, no, they don't want it.
And you know, they said they didn't want that. And the other tell you, I'd like to have an inspection of that. Let's move on.
Rosedale subdivision, Michael Hines has started the subdivision works on that. Hopefully we'll get all of that in by the end of June. 87 Main Street, I contacted the neighbours, they've not responded. I'll attempt it once more, but then I might close that matter out. Property conference is going to be held here later this year, and I've started planning for that. The surface rail land in Stone and Elizabeth, so that's along Muppet Street and Elizabeth Park. I'll talk to Greg and Christian about recommencing discussions with the department shortly on those.
Just on the one on Muppet Street, Joe, I think I brought it up ages ago. I think we made a decision we're not interested in
They're
that.
not interested in that.
But can we write to them about cleaning up that block? Like those old railway yards, etc., etc. I have brought that up in infrastructure. I don't know where it went. Yeah.
Okay. So we actually have a resolution of council to purchase that, to acquire that land. Do we need to get that officially rescinded?
In Muppet Street.
Yes.
I think if it's more than 3 months old, you don't need a decision, you just need you'll need a new resolution to do something different. But we'll check the legalities of that.
That must have come up when we weren't sure on the overpasses and the whatever, was it?
Yeah, it was back in March 27,
Can't say.
17.
Why do we want that? Anyway, that's up to you.
Hayden Street, I've started to look into that. There's quite a lot of lots there that will need to recommence on open cost acquisition on that. So Jefferson Park and St Andrews Reserve, this is one of the ones that we've done some legal investigation through the native title process, and we established that the council was granted the land back in 2017 as freehold land. I've had legal reports on that. Sent that off to Crown Land some time ago, and they hadn't responded. They've actually come back to us this week, and which is contrary with the information they're saying now is that that's wrong, that it's still Crown Land. So I just need to make you aware that there is going to be further discussion on that. Our legal advice is that it is freehold, and we're still standing by that. So it's going to get a little bit messy, I think.
So Joe, through you, Mr. Chair, so this table here is not correct.
The table is correct from the legal, from what our lawyers have said.
Yeah.
Crown Land are disputing it. So we need to now take it. I needed to actually get a meeting with Crown Land and our lawyers and work through the matter in more detail. So my advice is just be careful of looking at any projects on Jefferson Park and St Andrews Reserve until we have this matter resolved. Because if it does come back to being Crown Land, there is definitely an Aboriginal land claim and a native title claim on those lands. Aberdeen solar opportunities. So there's 2 companies that have expressed an opportunity, written to me about putting solar farms in on the remaining land at Aberdeen. This would,
the top of Perth Street.
one of them wants the whole lot. One of them wants just the industrial area. So next month, hopefully, I'll put up a report on what to do with the remaining subdivision land in all 3, in Aberdeen, Murrurundi and Merriwall, and that will be a consideration as an option in the Aberdeen subdivision.
Public consultation.
It would have to, yeah.
Definitely. We'll get a bit of repercussion on that one, anyway.
So Joe, would these solar companies look at roofs as well? Like some of them, people, it's just not just spare land, but would they be looking at people's roofs as well?
I'm not sure. I haven't had that discussion with them. They've just written to me trying to acquire land.
Yeah.
Hackett's Lane in Merriwall, once again, it's another one we've established. Was Crown and became council, but the assets was never transferred on the title deed, so we're working through that matter. And then there's a proposal coming up, probably through the corporate services team, to blocks of land to become community garden. So that will also need community consultation when we get the title deed sorted.
You said, Joe, they will never transfer it.
Yeah, so the title deeds weren't.
Powers to be years back, never
Yeah.
followed through.
Yeah.
Left us in a-
And these are the things that I'm starting to establish as I start to work through each of the
We're tidying
title.
up a lot of legacy issues.
That's what they do, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Joe's doing a good job.
well done.
And so what one is this one? Muppet Street Stone. So once again, this was a block of land that got sold some time ago, and the title deeds were transferred to the owner. So I'm working through that one as well. That's it on the project.
Okay,
Oh, no, it's above the drain.
okay, no more questions? Meeting note report, moved,
Second.
all in favour? Thanks, carried. Page
There's no one to vote against.
306. Rental properties.
Yeah, so we're moving along really well with our rental properties. I've recently signed a lease for a new business to operate in Merriwall. It will be a tea and herbal tea and spice business, and she makes all the herbal teas herself. And on the background, she also does IT training, and she does report writing for a lot of government, New South Wales government, and big businesses like council, like Qantas and Virgin and those sort of things. So she's a technical writer for them. So she'll be a great little asset to have in Merriwall. But so she'll have the IT business and then growing up the spice and herbal tea.
So which building was that? That's
the bacon
next-
shop
next
next to the old library. Yeah. So she'll be going in there. She's signed a 12-month lease and paid
That's been released for ages.
long time.
Well done.
Yeah. And paid her whole 12-month rent in one hit.
in the old library, what's happening with that?
That's the meeting room.
Yeah.
So the old library is where the meeting room is, and that's what we've been doing up. So that's what we need to put the Zoom.
Oh, that's where the new carpet is.
That's
Yeah,
what Ron was
awesome.
talking about. That's what
Yeah.
Ron was talking
Yeah.
about before.
Yeah.
That's where we know.
Yeah.
So that leaves one shop in Campbell's Corner, which is currently vacant, but Renee and David Kelby have been negotiating with two people, so we might have some news on that in time as well. So,
Campbell's Corner, very typical. I know when they've come on the meeting.
Yeah.
The basement, that's a really great space. Can we see what?
I've
we
been
can do
talking
with
to Public Works to develop a master plan for their whole building to, and they'll look at like the best uses, because now we have the
Yeah, okay.
opportunity with the upstairs. And so there's so many different things we can do there. And they have people, somebody who specialises in these sort of buildings.
that? I've had two people say to me this year that with this work from home thing, it's all great, but it'd be great to have someone in the local town where they can just go in and they've got great internet access, they can do it, they don't have the kids and the dogs.
This business hub, that's
Yeah, just.
sort of for the upstairs
Yeah,
area.
you know, there might be space up there.
Because we still, even with the lottery going downstairs, we still need to generate the commercial income from upstairs. It can't just be all, art galleries and stuff. There has to be a combination of commercial and cultural. It's very, very big
Back
space.
section, where there are those four sections of office type.
okay, so just on the capital works, coming up capital works for the rental properties, we had done some work for the bacon shop out at Merriwall to secure the tenant. We've got some works to do at the medical centre and trees and cleaning out gutters and fixing up some things there. bottle brush trays I did an inspection recently. I'm quite concerned with movement in that, and the whole cornices are coming away from the big walls. So I actually want to get a structural engineer in there to have an initial look and determine what we can do. So and it's cracking really badly. Air conditioners need some replacing there and some other bits and pieces.
Have they been serviced?
So unit one, so unit 2 is being serviced, unit 1 is beyond serviceable, they need replacement, so I'm recognising that.
Is that the ones we had issues with a while back? Those ones we were going to, yeah, right.
Medical Centre, the renovations have been completed to what we put the scope out. We've now worked out, we should have extended the ramp onto a platform. So our internal building guys are going to put in a concrete slab at the bottom of the ramp. But one thing that they did find, so they've written to us about is with COVID-19, they're not allowed to have carpet in medical practice anymore. So we've had quotes. I had put in there 19 to 22,000 to replace the carpet to the correct lino, and I just, while we were sitting in the meeting, got another quote through of 14,000. So we'll be moving forward with that.
Yeah, I'll cover it in it's just
No, that's very good. And it's moved. Councillor Fisher, second myself, all in favour, aye, against, carried.
I won't go through the action items unless there's something there because we've discussed most of those. And I think that's it for me.
Yep. No question on the report, so on the actions. No, moved. Second, Councillor Fisher,
One more to
all in
go?
favour. Carried.
Oh, but, sorry. The sale properties, is it? Yes, of course.
Vote 319.
Okay, so everything is sold at Murrurundi and Mirror that has been subdivided. There's one lot remaining at Aberdeen, which is quite, it's got a small building block which is flat as you can see in the photo, and then it goes from quite a rise.
I don't know.
Sorry, yeah. It is not gaining any interest, so we may need to consider what we do with that block of land. So I'll have to think about it over the next
What's
month.
ours?
Sorry?
What could you? Yeah, what do you say?
Well, they're all in the market for 80. The others are all gone, and this is sort of the ugly duckling.
Let's leave it to you to come back with something.
Well, we might have to drop the price. We'll see what comes in.
I'll have a chat with the agent. And
We'll
report
go
next
on and
month.
see what happens for next month.
It's actually possibly the first location.
Put a pole home on there or something.
You get a great deal, you've got no one to that.
Just got to have a bit of imagination.
Yeah,
Exactly. Creative design.
but yeah, also then it's about the cost of building something on a pole and that sort of thing. Settlements are all going well.
It's got the land I'm looking at in New Zealand. It's easy to build.
There's quite a few that I'm working on at the moment for next sort of sales, vacant lands, if I'm finding them in the property register, those reports, getting valuations and make recommendations over the next couple of months. And then some acquisitions that we're looking at is 46 Barton Street, should hopefully have a valuation in the next few days to bring that to committee next month. For water infrastructure, Elizabeth Park, which we've discussed, and a lot for the balance of Scone to Murrurundi pipeline, which is awaiting subdivision. Compulsory acquisitions, so we're moving ahead with the Murrurundi, Caspers, Merriwar and Aberdeen compulsory acquisitions. This is where we're going to start negotiations with the Aboriginal Lands Councils, trying to resolve some of the land claim issues there.
Joe, can I just, through you, can I just ask, with compulsory acquisition and native title and land claims, how does that work? And I'm more than happy for you to get back to me on that one.
Yep, no, that's fine. We have to resolve, so if there is an Aboriginal land claim, we have to have that resolved an agreement in place prior to submitting the acquisition to the Office of Local Government. If there's a native title claim, the acquisition request can go in to the minister. We just need to note that it's there and commit to resolve that as part of the acquisition while we're going through the acquisition or afterwards. So, and we're given a certain amount of time to resolve it. Thank you.
Okay, just to note, again, committee, note that report as well. Moved Councillor Fisher, second myself, all in favour, against, carried. Thank you, staff, thank you, committee, thank you, councillor, for your input. Very good.
Can I ask, what I would like to ask, can I be a committee member?
Is this in the, I'll just.
Yes, in the meeting.
in the
Answer a
meeting.
question.